Okay, we on?
Yep.
Good evening. This is the March meeting of the Village of Amerenik Board of Appeals. Okay, and at this point, I'll just point out we're all here tonight. All members of the board are present. Meg Jurgen is present. Greta Heaney, Robin Kramer, Brian Gladstein, right? Did I say that right? Okay.
Correct.
All right. All right. We have tonight several hearings. There are 3 hearings, plus we have some other business. The goal will be we don't like to go too late. 3 hours is so by 10:30, but we have to conclude the public hearings earlier. So let me just briefly, for those of you here tonight, let me just outline the procedures. The public hearings are on an application. There are 3 of them. When you please come forward on your application, on your public hearing, please present your position and the reasons for your request for the relief that you want. We have copies of the papers, but if you want to briefly review them, that's fine. You should do that. That would be very helpful. And then respond. The board members will ask questions and please respond to them. Do it succinctly if you can, please. And then members of the public, other members who are not applicants, will also have an opportunity to speak. We ask, though, for everyone's cooperation because there's a lot of people sometimes try to be to the point. There's no need to repeat everything. We'll take the public here comment. At the end of the hearing, if we're going to close it, we will close the hearing, which means we no longer will take any evidence or any information about it. But there's likely to be no deliberations tonight. The board will not decide the matter usually the same evening. On occasion it does, but for the most part it will not. And it will decide it within 2 months. So the deliberations are separate. There's no need to argue with the board or argue your points. The board will then deliberate and it will take up your points and review them. If there's any information that you'd like or questions you have, you can bring them up, please. And I think that pretty much outlines how we try to go forward. And also, when you have questions of an applicant, if you're here, ask the board. Please don't address the applicant. Don't speak, you address the board. If we think it's important, one of the board members will ask the applicant the questions if they find it relevant, if we need it. Okay, we have the first hearing we'll start with now. We're here is on 1260 Flagler. This briefly opened last month, and this is an application for a area variance. We have received some additional papers and information, including, I guess, a variance was issued on this property. Got some notification of it back in not sure it was 99.
I think that was a example of a neighboring
Oh, was that a neighboring property?
resolution, and it was actually no variance was required, was the decision.
Okay, I just got it this afternoon.
Yeah, we just got that an hour or so ago. Okay.
Oh, that's 1270.
Yeah,
Okay.
It wasn't clear. Are you sure? Wasn't it the grant of a variance? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, I thought it was.
as I
I
saw
don't
it
know if
was
it's the same property because we have to check because you have different addresses. It's generally the.
right. I don't
property.
think, we'll have to hear from their
But I
counsel.
thought it was the same property.
That up, they'll sign that to us.
If I could say, it's 1270. I'm sorry, it's 1270. And as I read through it, it was an appeal of the building inspector's decision as to whether or not they even required a variance. And that the board at the time found that they did not require a variance to build the second floor. And Dave should be able to fill us in on it because Dave's name is one of the members of the board on the decision.
Apparently I was the chair when back then, and I did see it, and immediately I had instant recall of it.
Yeah.
Who spoke and what they said and what they didn't say. But
Maybe we could have their counsels.
Would you like me to promote everybody?
I'll just point this out, and I
Oh,
don't
wait.
want to waste our time on this, but it does say that there was a variance was granted according to what I'm reading. But on the last page. All right. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. Can we put the applicant on? Or counsel for the applicant? I thought I heard a yes.
They're loading.
Oh, there we go. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry, it took a minute to upload to panelist. I just want to make sure my whole team is here.
Okay.
Sarah Neufeld, it's good to see you, members of the zoning board. You can all hear me all right, right?
Yes,
Okay, great. I see, I'm here on behalf of our clients, Frank and Nina Cooper, who are also here on screen.
evening.
And Rick Yestat, who, from Yestat Architecture, who's the architect for the project. So Chair, I think it may be helpful for us to give a brief overview and present our case. And I'd be happy to address some of what we did find in those 1990 records. And I do want to apologize for the late submission. We submitted a FOIL a while ago. We just got the response late yesterday. So I just wanted to make sure the board had an accurate record.
Right, no, you pointed that out in your cover letter. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we last appeared before you in February, and as you're aware, we are requesting area variances for a proposed second story alteration. There's an existing second story on the single family home. And we withdrew our previously requested interpretation request. So tonight we're here before you to consider the granting of the variances associated with that second story alteration. The property is located in the R20 one family zoning district in the Edgewater Point community, and it adjoins Long Island Sound. The home that exists on the property today was constructed in about 1960, so it predates a lot of requirements. And the applicant, the alterations that we're proposing are within the footprint of the existing building. We're not proposing to expand the envelope at all. They're really just modifications to the roof line and to the dormers. So the purpose of those alterations is to increase the livable space on the second floor, because right now it's pretty constrained. And the property does feature some extensive landscaping. It's evergreen landscaping on both side yard boundaries. The maximum height for this zoning district is 35 feet, and the applicants are proposing 31 feet 8 inches. So they're under the required the maximum height. And just as a little bit of history, I know we provided this in our submission, so I'm not going to go too far into it. The applicants did take a great deal of care in designing this alteration. They had met with their neighbors and with the EPPOA on numerous occasions. We submitted in our February supplemental materials a letter from August of 2020, which outlined some amendments that were made in response to comments from the neighbors and the EPPOA. So there were at that time a lot of concerns about privacy that were raised, and the applicants did make a number of concessions that of course we'll detail more for you, and they were detailed in our submission, including privacy screen walls, reducing the number of windows along one of the property lines, and reducing portions of the rooftop terrace.
Could you be kind enough possibly at the beginning now to just indicate the actual size of their variances you're looking for compared to what's there? So we have a context.
Okay, so we're actually not proposing any change in what's existing already, but there are, as we can tell, there are two side yard variances required: the combined side yard and the lesser side yard requirements. The combined side yard requirement is 45 feet, and what exists today is 32.2, and we're not proposing any change to that. And the lesser side yard requirement is 20 feet, and 15.5 feet exists today.
Dave, could I ask one question that I think is relevant to this point right now? It's a short question, I believe. I understand that you're not changing the footprint. You're not building past the existing footprint. When I looked at the top, and I understand that you're actually reducing the amount of square footage in the non-conforming yards, but part of it is because you're pulling back on one side. I'm looking at the corner of the house when I'm facing the house on the right, the corner that's nearest the water. Is it true that when you reconfigure the dormer, you might be adding a couple few square feet of square footage that you're not able to use right now? I understand the building envelope didn't change, but it kind of looks like a notch in there. I was trying to figure that out just for our purposes to understand exactly the measurements of what's going on. Is that like a 3x4 area that will now be additional square footage that could be used?
Why don't you continue along and answer that in the context of however you
Yeah.
want to deal with it, because.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll do that. I think Rick is best suited to answer that question as well. So I'll let him answer that. I just want to give a brief overview of the 5-factor test.
Right.
And we do believe that it's pretty
Just want
clear
to
that,
clarify before you go on, just want to, so you have a 20-foot lesser side yard and you have 15.5 now, right?
correct.
That's prior, that's the non-conforming prior, right?
That's one of the non-conforming parts. Yeah, the determination that we're appealing doesn't detail the specific variances. It's a variance from section 65, which is the non-conforming provision.
Okay.
So the plans and the materials that we've supplemented the record with demonstrate that there will not be a detriment to the character of the neighborhood and the neighboring properties. We submitted aerials and photographs that show that the Edgewater Point community is surrounded with single-family homes that are larger and have second stories that are built out above the first story. And Rick will be able to show you some photos of that when he discusses his portion of the presentation. There are many full second stories in this neighborhood, and the alterations that we're proposing fit squarely above the first story. We're not proposing to kick anything out. Further, there is a standard in the neighborhood of non-conforming side yards. So while we have a non-conformity, we'd also like to point out that the adjacent neighbors at 1280 Flagler also have a higher degree of nonconformity, but nevertheless a side yard nonconformity. And our home is actually spans less of that nonconformity. The home next door is over double the length in the side yard than the applicant's home. And there was some opposition comments submitted. I'm sure the board has had a chance to review them. And to that, in this context, under this factor, I'd just like to note the standard here for the first prong of the test is not that there's no change to the neighborhood as a result of what's being proposed. It's that there won't be any negative impact and detriment to the neighborhood. So the neighbors, they're not really entitled to a no change in circumstances condition in perpetuity. And we do not believe that anything will be a detriment based on our proposal. We are consistent and we conform to the character of the area. As I had mentioned, the property also has vegetation on both sides and landscaping to screen views. Factor number 2, the variances will not physically impact physical environmental conditions. There is no at-grade disturbance proposed, no increase in impervious surface area here. To the extent that the opposition has raised some FEMA concerns, we note respectfully that's not really within the purview of the zoning board. However, the applicant has submitted all required FEMA documentation with the building department, including compliance with the substantial improvement rule. And all of those records are with the building department. They've been reviewed and the building inspector has referred us to the zoning board of appeals. Factor 3, there are no feasible alternatives. The pre-existing non-conforming home and the side yards render the exterior alterations here to either side of the home non-conforming. Particularly, we pointed out in our February submission that one of the existing staircases along the side of the home is partially within the side yard setback as it is today, as are the dormers. So all that space that we're working with and we're looking to accommodate already exists within that area of nonconformity. And any alternative that we're exploring, we'd also like to point out it would be of the same height proposed, because there's no height variance needed here. So it may just result in something that architecturally is not very visually appealing, but it would not be lower in height. Factor 4, the variances are not self-created. The same conditions existed on the property since 1960. Half a century later, the applicants are inheriting these difficulties. They're just simply trying to create more livable conditions on the second floor. And finally, the variances are not substantial. First, I'd like to point out that substantiality alone is not a determinative factor per Second Department case law that was cited in our January submission. And further, when we're determining substantiality of a variance, it can't be achieved using simple mathematical formulas as been suggested by the opposition in this case. And I would also like to note that some of the correspondence received from the opposition, the calculations, which I'll let Rick more fully address for you, are they're misleading and they're very incorrect. They don't include areas of the existing dormers, and they're not a valid comparison of what's being proposed over existing conditions here. And the other point that I'll note on substantiality is that it's important for the board to look at the totality of circumstances in this case. So we have a addition being proposed that is 3 feet less than the maximum height required by the zoning code. There's no expansion of building envelope. There's existing vegetation. And when you're comparing it in the immediate neighborhood to an immediately adjacent home with a substantially greater volume, closer to the property line in the setback, over double the length of the applicant's existing home, with 14 windows looking into the side yard. I mean, that has to be considered when you're reviewing substantiality. And when you look at all that, a simple second floor renovation to an existing single family home with a second story is not substantial. And to the 1990 area variance records that we did submit this afternoon, that was for this property. The section block and lot, if you note at the top, includes lots 7 and 8. And we also included some diagrams and site plans and tax maps that were submitted with that to show it is in fact the applicant's property. And there were variances granted in November of 1990. I know, and I'm sure the board is aware, there was a different area variance standard at that time. And of course, the board was not reviewing the proposal here before you today. However, area variances, as you all know, they do run with the land. There was no condition on that approval limiting it to the plans at the time. Further, there was no restriction on height in that resolution. So I think it is compelling, the 1990 resolution, when you're looking at facts like the board already determined that there was no self-created hardship here, that there was going to be no impact to the existing neighborhood. And at that time, actually, there was a substantial second story being proposed over the 1.5 story building. So I think that's important for the board's consideration. And at this time, Rick, I think it would be helpful for you to run through some of those numbers and address Ms. Jurgen's comments too earlier.
Before you get to Rick specific, you have to explain something to me, please.
Sure.
This property got an area variance in 1990. Is that how this existing second story was built pursuant to that variance, or was it never built?
It was built. It was built.
Okay,
pursuant to this
so then if there is an existing area variance that enabled the second floor to be built, this is not a non-conforming condition. This is instead a use subject of a condition subject to a variance, which means you need to amend the area variance. It is not a non-conforming condition. You don't create a non-conforming condition by a variance. A variance is a completely separate type of permission. A non-conforming condition exists when there's a change in the law. There was no change in the law here, unless you're telling me that there was some other change in the law. And if so, please, you'll have to identify that. But if there's not a change in the law, then we don't have a non-conforming condition here. We have instead a variance. It doesn't mean we can't grant anything. It just means that what you're seeking should not be an area variance based on a non-conforming condition. Instead, it has to be a modification or a new area variance.
Yeah, let me just ask you this, because one thing I want to point out, you made a comment that you have the variance though was for the specific plans at the time. If you look at the conditions, it'll say that. So,
Right.
So the work done under this variance in 1990 has to be done in strict compliance with the plans, with the plans is filed with the application. That's on the last page. And then the work has to be done within 1 year. What, can you kind of clarify for me what exactly was done as a result of this variance?
Sure, just to give a
Sure.
summary of, and these are the records that, like I said, we had just received. It appears that there was no combined side yard setback requirement at that time. The variance was only issued for one of the side yards. So to Ms. Kramer's point, it is still non-conforming in terms of the combined side yard. And second, I do want to point out, these records were foiled with the village, so I'm not sure, given the last minute nature, if the building inspector did have a chance to review these before he issued a determination in December. We don't have a lot of the details here, but what and I agree with you, Chair, you know, those were different plans that were reviewed, and we're not taking this decision and saying you need to grant the variances based on that. But there were factors here in building a second story that were considered by this board that are relevant in making a determination now.
This was for the second floor, in other words. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, and the numbering on the house has changed, correct?
That's my understanding, yes, because it's the same section, block, and lot number.
Okay.
And when you look at the plans, it's clear it's the same house. And we chased back the chain of title too, to
Okay.
confirm.
All right, so the house though already existed prior to that.
Correct. The house was constructed in 1960.
Yeah, you said that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this was 30 years later. This was an application.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a quick question for council. Do you have a floodplain development permit yet for the project?
No, we've applied for one. The way the village process works, that gets issued at the time a building permit gets issued after variances are granted. So in order to apply for this variance and to apply for a building permit application, we do need to file the floodplain development permit application at the same time, which we've done. And the applicants have already filed that paperwork.
And the last time we had a meeting, I asked, what was the elevation of the current structure? Can you tell me what that is?
I know Rick looked through this, so I'm gonna ask him to answer that question.
Yeah, that would be on the flood certificate. Which I can pull up. Unless, Kristen, you have access to that. Let's see.
I do have it. So let me see. Are there any other board members with questions at this time?
Well, why don't you go forward on your application and if you want, do you want someone else to speak with you? You have someone else that you indicated you wanted someone else to speak, right?
Yeah, Rick has a few diagrams that he'd like to review while he's,
Yeah,
I don't want to interfere with your presentation in the sense that, you know.
thank you.
I think you've thought this through, you've organized it, and then we can deal with what questions we
Thank
have.
you. Rick, if you want to go through your presentation, I can pull up the elevation certificate. I have it in my files. I can pull it up right now.
Thank you.
okay, that might be a little more efficient. I was looking through the architecture. I believe it's on the architectural drawings.
Rick, I just forwarded it for you also. You have it via email now.
I'm sorry?
I just forwarded the elevation certificate to
Oh,
you.
okay. Okay. Well, Kristen, you want to go while I do the presentation, or?
You can go ahead with the presentation. That's fine.
Oh, well, here it is. Here it is. I have it. Okay. So let's share. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
It's a little small.
Yeah, very small.
A little better.
Good.
.6.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So regarding what Kristen was referring to, we'll look at some of the numbers that were presented. So apologies for the quality. We put together the consulting architect's numbers adjacent to our analysis. So on the left is the consulting architect, the opposition architect.
I'm sorry, you mean someone, another person's architect, yeah.
Yeah, of what was presented by the opposition. So on the left here, you see the sidewall calculation is, unusually low. The way this was configured, on the right-hand side, you can see that the consulting architect did not include any of the dormer square footage, which is practically in the same plane in the front and the back for his calculations. So when we recalculated this, the consulting architect's number was a 88.4% increase, when this square footage, which is more accurate in our opinion, more realistic when you look at the photographs, which we'll see in a minute. So it's going from 88.4 to 33% increase. So these are, to say the least, a little bit misleading. And see, you see what's happening here. So the consulting architect took this square footage to compare to the proposed, which is quite, that's just, curious that was done that way. This is the front of the house looking towards the water. And then this is the rear of the house looking towards Flagler. And you see all of this area was excluded from this calculation, which we think could be misleading with regarding substantiality and establishing such. So similarly, in their calculation for the right-hand side, the dormer was, the dormer in the rear was not included in the square footage, which we believe would be more accurate for the board to consider when considering substantiality. So again, this is the consulting architect's area, and we believe this should be considered by the board as part of their definition of.
What are yours, as opposed to just telling us what they've done wrong or right? I mean, I don't think we have to refer to them as opposition. These are people in the area and neighbors, and they viewed it differently. What do you show yours? You said 30, you talked about a 33% change?
Correct.
Okay, and so how does that, what's the square footage going to change from to?
Opposition was.
Opposition, you, not
Oh, me.
the applicant. I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
Let's not just, create, an acrimonious situation. Just what is it you show?
yeah, apologies if it came off that way.
You're going
I'm just trying to identify, which numbers are which. Okay,
That's right. That's what I'm
All
trying.
yeah, apologies. So
Apologies.
our number is 1,331 square feet.
What is your FAR now? What is your future FAR, and what is the FAR permitted?
So the FAR now is 27.5%, 5,621 square feet. We're actually proposing to decrease that to 5,618 square feet. And what's permitted is 5,118 square feet. So 25% is permitted, 27.5% exists today, and 27.4 and change will exist after this. We're decreasing square footage.
And what are the actual square footage numbers that are changing?
She just read them.
No,
Those are the totals. I was asking what how
not
the
1,500
footage is changing.
square feet.
Sorry.
It's the addition.
I would like to see what the square footage is on the side of the house that's next to 1280 Flagler Drive. Is because in past considerations of the extension of, the increase in nonconformity, we actually calculated the square footage. And is there any additional square footage to be gained on that particular side of the house? I know in total, you are reducing the amount of square footage, but I wanted just to know for us to clarify when we make our decision that we're considering, is it 8 more square feet because you're filling in where there was a dormer? It seems that you are now extending the livable space. So I couldn't see the square footage for the dimensions of the bedroom exactly, just to understand, is there a change in the square footage of that bedroom? Knowing that it's not going past the building envelope.
Rick, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, so if I understand the question, help me out a little bit.
Right, that corner where your cursor is right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems like right now there may be a notch there because of a window or some architectural feature. And is it being fleshed out that there's actually, you're adding a few more square feet on this side of the house?
are you referring to this area? Is this the area, the notch?
No, it's before that area,
The
inside.
whole, I think what Meg is trying to get, and Meg, clarify me if I'm wrong, but the question that we would have is, what is the square footage of the area that you are putting in the non-conforming side yard? So you are adding to the second floor, some floor area just above the first floor, and the total square footage of the area that you are adding in the non-conforming side yards is how many square feet?
Of the
Okay,
livable square footage. The
yeah,
usable square
yeah,
footage.
basically this hatched area. That's what
Yes.
you're asking for.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
No, we're asking for, but how it's designed today, what is the square footage? How much are you walking on top of that hatched area? And are you going to be able to walk on more of that hatched area and use it once you've redesigned the house thing, if all goes through? Could you show? an
Let's go
existing
step by step. Okay, so this square footage, let's do this quickly. This is,
Yes, how much square footage I know it's on an angle, we can calculate.
I can make a rough estimate because the rear dimension is, 39 inches and the front's 13 inches. So we take the average. So the length is 3 plus 29. So it would be 29 times, let's see, so 1, 2, 3 feet. So that'd be roughly 60 square feet. And I think you're asking what the existing, what that hatched area,
60 square feet is covering just the hatched area? I'm not asking for the entire room, just how much?
the inside area,
Great, thank you, thanks,
yeah,
yep.
that's beyond the setback line. I
Right,
think
great.
okay,
And then what is it existing today, just so we have a comparison?
okay. We'll go to the existing plan.
It could be the same, it was, there's need some help.
Probably slightly larger because of the fact that we're filling in, and here it is.
Right, so
we're
that's what
filling-
I'm looking for, yeah. that-
Understood. Okay, got it. So we'll make a close estimate. So that dimension, so this dimension's about 3 feet. So this dimension is 3 by 6. So, that's about 18 square feet.
Thank you.
I have a different question, then let me go, which was with slight differences. The total area that you are adding to the second floor that is in the non-conforming side, the part of the non-conforming side here, how much square footage are you putting new into the non-conforming side yard piece? Over
18
there.
feet, 18 square feet.
That's it. The rest does not exist. This exists. You're building out. Why is this? Because it's the dormer. Why is the hatched area not included? I'm confused.
Want the total amount of square footage that's in the non-conforming yard, Robin?
Yeah.
The total amount.
Yes,
So we know now on that side of the house, it's 60 square feet. How much is it on the other side of the house?
I'm only interested in the side of the house
Would
where
be-
you're extending into the side yard that you didn't.
But
before
that's
with
on
the
both
second floor.
sides. It's on
Both sides, right, both sides.
So how much of the hatched area is livable square footage in the new?
Well, excuse me, I'm not interested in livable square footage. I'm interested
the
in
number
square
of the
footage
square
as
foot also.
defined in the village code, whether it's called livable or not. We have a definition in the village code and it's not livable. It is square footage as defined in the village code. So I'm asking how much floor area, square footage as defined in the village code are you adding in the non-conforming side yard, which at both side yards total, how much? Not just the dimension of it, not just how many feet, because you're not adding, right? It's X feet laterally, right? Your existing side yard is too big and you are building up above it. What is the square footage of the area that you are building up above it, taking into account the fact that you might have a dormer there, that you might have something else that right now sticks out? The square footage of the total non-conforming square footage
The
that isn't there
non-conforming.
now and you are putting in.
Right, just the non-conforming aspect.
Correct.
I understand.
Yeah, so that
He
would be
told
the,
us on one side is 60, so we're going to the other side.
Let him answer.
so let's go through it a little bit. So we're answering your question accurately. So this area is being built out in the proposal, this area. This area is also an attic space that is not, that's storage that will be part of the second floor. So this area is 18 square feet, and I'm going to guess this area is about, I don't know, 22 square feet.
And what is in between them? Why is in between them? It's not, yeah, that.
Well, that's already existing square footage. I thought you wanted the
Yeah,
difference.
no, I don't. I
between
just
the
want to
60
understand what that is. Correct. If it's existing square footage, I'm not interested in it, but I'm trying to have you explain to me what it is now. So right now, that part of the second floor exists.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
what
Okay,
does,
that's fine. That's what I'm trying to understand. So I want to, so
Yeah,
you're adding
okay.
18 plus 22-ish.
Yeah, and then you're asking for the other side as well, but
Yeah, whatever you're doing, you're doing.
you
You're doing
know,
it on both sides. So.
This is an important question, because we just got this new information now. So that has to be, in my
Right.
opinion, what was granted in I forgot the name, 1990. Council could correct me if I'm wrong, but, part of this hatched area will now become conforming. I think,
Wait, stop.
Really?
as-
None
as
of it's
this-
going to become conforming. You
that-
right now, forget the variance. The variance isn't relevant to my question. My question is really simple. You have an existing house. There is an existing house here which has existing dimensions. Now, you are building out the second floor on top of the first floor. Whether it's 1 square foot or 1,000 square feet, it has a certain area to it. Forget the variance that was granted in 1990. It's not relevant to my question. You have an
Okay.
existing configuration. Now you're adding to it. On the second floor, we've just gone through that on the right side of the house looking this way. You're adding 30 feet,
no, 40, I thought
40
40.
feet, sorry, 40 feet. On the left side of the house,
Excuse
how
me,
much
Robin,
are
Robin,
you
the right,
adding?
Robin, the right side, that's east and west this or something, north and
Yeah, I
south.
didn't know which it was because he doesn't have dimensions on here. So that's what I'm looking at the plan. We have the right side, which is closer to 12, 80 and the left side, which is closer to 1240, right? Am I right on my sides? So how much are you adding on the side that is closer to 1240? Obviously, you must be taking some place, it must be taking some square foot down, because if you're adding here and you have less square foot than feet than you did before this proposal, you're obviously taking something down, but how much are you adding
Okay.
in the non-conforming side yard on the second floor?
Okay, so we will. I'll give you.
So Rick, I think on the right elevation, you have 40 feet, square feet that you just mentioned, because it's attic space and there's a notch. I don't believe you have the same issue on the left elevation, which faces 1240. Is that correct?
You're simply repeating and using the same floor that's there already existing.
No, there's more. You can see in the drawing, there's more. This shows you that the second floor is going to have more on the left side.
The drawing does show that. The drawing would show, the hatching is on, it's the
Very
other.
clearly, there's going to be more on this left side.
Is more of a sliver or squaring off.
You mean there's more in the yard on the left side than on the right side?
If you look at the house, they're putting more on the second floor on the left side than on the right side. If you look
But
at
it's
the
a repeat of
elevation,
it's a repeat of what was there already. Is that, I know that you're counting, you're wanting to count everything that's in the non-conforming yard, your non-conforming space, but it doesn't seem that they're filling out more than.
I
what-
understand that, Meg, but I want to know how much.
Just try to clarify that that's where you're going. I just wanted to clarify what you're asking for.
Right, I want to know the square footage that they're adding and putting in the non-conforming yard.
Excuse me, what you're trying to, what you've asked is, you went on the one side, you got an answer, and you want to know what they're adding in the beyond the setback, the side yard on the other side, correct, Robin? Yeah.
Right, what you show here is area of variance.
So the
In
question.
this drawing, you show it, so what's the dimension, what is that area?
Okay, I'll give it to you in a minute. Okay, it's a trapezoid, so one sec.
I mean, it looks like a rectangle, close, it
Yeah,
looks
it looks more
barely
rectangle.
trapezoidal, it looks more rectangular. So even, so,
So that's. 6, 7. Almost there. So 350 square feet.
so just to clarify, you're putting 350 square feet of new construction into above the existing first floor within the same side yard width, if you will, but it's going to be new on the second floor, correct? 350 square feet, correct?
That is the area of the hatched area shown in the plans that is within the side yard, the required side yard.
Right.
This
Okay,
is
that's what I
not
wanted to
new.
know.
This is not new. What the 350 square feet that I gave you is not new square footage. That's
It's
gross.
new in
That's
that
a gross
area.
area of the area of the second floor that's within the side yard. So
But
if you're
it's new
asking
in
what
that
the
area,
differential,
isn't it?
if you're asking what the
sorry,
differential, if you're asking what the differential is, that's a different number. In other words, there's existing square footage, pre-existing
I'm asking you-
non-conforming. Yeah,
I'm asking you
You're going-
how much is new. So let me make this in simple English, maybe. Okay, you have an existing building. I'm going to make up numbers because I don't have the specific numbers. You have an existing building, and your existing building, or go to your elevation drawing. Go to the, yes, this one. Okay. Scroll down to the existing building. Go down a little bit to the existing building. Now, you have, this is what your house, the house looks like right now, right?
No,
On the
no, no,
first
no, no.
floor. I mean, it doesn't really, but the outline of the house. On that side of the house, okay, there it is. That's the existing left elevation. Correct. That's what I'm looking at now.
Yeah.
The line of, I'm not, so on that drawing on the left existing, so you have it on the other, you have it, I'm a little confused by you showing the left elevation. So this is, yeah, if I'm facing the house. Okay, so
Yeah.
on the left side of the house, facing the house, I don't know whether that's, I don't know if it's east, west, north, or south, but facing the house, on the left side of the house, you have an existing configuration. Whatever it is, it is. Now, you are rebuilding that house. Now, in that rebuilding, you are redesigning what a portion of the house will look like in this area on the left, on the second floor,
Correct.
right? You may be demolishing some, you may be adding some, you could be doing all kinds of things. Right now, you have, again, now this is a totally made up number. You have 1,000 square feet in that area now in the non-conforming side yard on the second floor. Or you have 0 square feet in the non-conforming side yard on the second floor. Or you have 50 square feet in the non-conforming side yard on the second floor. After you rebuild this building as you would like to build it, you will have 4,000 square feet or 61 square feet or 2. I don't know what the number is. I'm looking for the differential. How much new floor area are you putting into this side of the house in the non-conforming side yard? And by new, I understand you're not increasing the floor area in the house, but you are reconfiguring the floor area, some of which square footage is going to be in this side yard area that wasn't there before. And I want to know how much is going to be there. That's all I want to know, just that number.
Okay,
Is it
so
the
here's the
350
existing,
you gave me, or does that
Right.
not account for something you're tearing down? That's what I
yeah,
want
so
to know.
here's the existing floor plan on the second floor. So, again, this is the side yard setback line on the left-hand side of the building, facing the Milstein property.
Mhm.
So what you're asking is, so all of this hatched area here, if you follow this perimeter, is existing square footage. We're filling in the dormer in this corner, and we're again filling in cleaning up this wall here, filling in maybe another 8 square feet in this position, and squaring off this. Well, no, that's not true. We're setting back, and I think the board's aware of this now, that we're decreasing the nonconformity over the garage. So the proposed front wall proposed is in this position. So all of this square footage is being eliminated, improving the pre-existing nonconformance. I mean, that's
Okay.
an important thing for the board to understand also.
Okay.
The
so
volume
you're
and the
not-
square footage is being reduced. That's
So
in the
you're not
non-conforming area.
adding 350 square feet to the extent you're adding, it's just filling in the dormers like on the right side, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's a lot less than 350. It's just a lot less, whatever the number is.
Well, hold on one second. Hold on. If I'm looking at the drawing correctly, it looks like you're going out all the way to the edge of the roof line, way beyond where the dormers end.
and in which location? On the left?
Yeah, I'm looking at the plans for the existing left elevation, and you say line of proposed house renovation. and it literally goes out to the edge of the gutter. Yeah, that's the drawing right there. If you go down a little bit, you can see that that bump out goes beyond where the
Yeah.
dormer exists.
It does look like it goes out a lot.
And that goes actually to like where the gutter of the roof line is. And I think that what Robin is asking and what would be very, very beneficial to us is to understand what new area, what bulk is being created up there. I do understand that you're pulling back from over the garage, which is, something that we take into consideration, but
Okay,
what-
if I can respond, because I think there's a misunderstanding. This dotted line is not the floor, is not the exterior wall. This is
okay,
an architectural feature.
I'm only reading the plan. It says line of proposed house renovation.
Right. It does say that.
That's what it says. Are you telling me that you're not renovating that space?
Well, renovation may be a poor choice of words there, but that's the outline of the proposed structure.
Well, if it's the outline of the proposed structure, then wouldn't you be creating square footage there? that
Well, there's a
wasn't there?
difference between elevation and plan. You're looking at an elevation.
Okay,
If I can just, it actually shows in the side elevation. Yeah, here it is. So here's the line you're looking at.
yeah,
This dotted line is the exterior wall. So it's way, back here. The actual floor plan line, the wall of the windows is back here.
So what's the other line? What is that farther line?
This area is as indicated on the plans and the elevations, is a architectural detail, a projecting wall surface.
So that's but that's 2, 4, so that looks like 10 feet. 8 feet,
Let's
maybe
put
not
it
that
another way, and you could see that in the existing. This line equals the fascia of the existing structure. So let's go back, that's what we use to, minimize, impact and, what's there. So in other words, Brian, so let's go back to this dotted line.
yeah,
See, it equals the overhang of the existing house. So we
Yeah.
use that line, as as a line of architectural detail, so to speak, and it equals the existing condition. This is a soffit. This is a for lack of a better term, a kind of thin wall. Now, it's a subtopic, but this area, this wall, which has no habitable square footage behind it, only the balcony, this wall and this wall were all part of a discussion with the neighborhood association about privacy, which we accommodated. So that's not part of your question, but I think the clarification is there's no square footage behind this line. It's architectural detail.
yes,
looking-
but you're building it
To
in-
that line.
you're putting that architectural detail in the non-conforming setback. Correct?
That is correct in that, in the side yard, that is correct.
Okay. Well, listen, that's why we're here. We're really learning a lot. Your insights are very important. If that's something where that was done as an accommodation to the homeowners association, and it's a privacy screen. I mean, it's a relevant factor for us to consider. But for our purposes, you are building something in the non-conforming setback which was not there, which I think is also relevant. So
Right.
That's absolutely correct, Mr. Gladstein. So I also just want to point out Exhibit A of our supplemental submission included that August 2020 letter or memo to the EPPOA, and you'll see in that we note that privacy screen walls were added, and that's what Rick is referring to. So those were added to address concerns of the neighbors. And I understand why there's some confusion, because Rick was focusing on total square footage being added, where there's no real square footage behind this. But you're absolutely right that there is architectural detail being proposed in this existing side yard setback. But
And that
not, but
was-
not beyond the point of where the existing home is, right? We're not extending the envelope at all.
Right, and that was, I'm sorry, you said it was August? The letter was-
August of 2020, August 3rd, 2020.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
still very confused about all this.
Yeah.
Because I haven't gotten a simple answer to my question, which should have been a simple question. You have X square feet in the non-conforming side yard now. You're going to have Y square feet in the non-conforming side yard in the future. What's the difference? Simple, that's simple I want to know. And I can't, and I've gotten two different answers. So there seems to be discussion about architectural detail. None of that's relevant to my question. You have an
Okay.
existing non-conforming condition with X square feet in the side yard. You're
Okay, so
going to
let's go
have
back.
Y square feet, whether
Yeah.
it's more or less.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a
understood.
different amount.
Yeah, understood. So let's go back. So this is the proposed, this hatched area from the front of the proposed house. This is the front over the midpoint of the garage. Going to the rear, this is the rear wall of the
Mhm.
proposed. All of this hatched area is 300, we're saying 350 square feet.
Right.
So let's keep that in mind. So then if we go back to the existing plans, like we were discussing before,
Mhm.
this area is that the existing square footage that's within the side yard. So this is, I'm going to say it's going to be a, let's put it this way. We're adding here some square footage. I'm going to say that's approximately 20 square feet. But we're subtracting here because we're pulling this wall back from the face of the garage. So we're gaining back, this habitable square foot there. So I would say what we're adding, I think it's a wash, or yeah, it's close
Okay.
to the same.
So no net increase on that side, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. So,
Could you tell us the difference in the side yard measurement from your lot line to the wall of the house now, and what it will be from the lot line to the privacy screen wall?
Okay.
So I'll let Rick talk about that a little bit, but I do just want you to know, because I had this question too when I looked at these plans early on. It's not straight. The home doesn't sit completely straight, so that distance changes slightly to the side yards on both sides. So again, not an
I just
entirely
wanna get a
clear.
sense-
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to get a sense of how much
Sure.
encroachment that wall is on that side.
Yeah, so our drawings indicate 15 foot 3 inches existing. And the surveyor goes to the corner of the building. So these things aren't exactly apples to apples. So 15.3 on the left, which is the existing condition, to the corner of the existing house. And to that fin wall is probably 15.3, 15.2. As Kristen is noting, it's the side of the building is not parallel to the property line. So it may even be 15 feet, 2.5 inches. This will be part of the you know. And then in the front, you know, it's kind of, you know, that condition doesn't exist in the front. What you're asking about.
So the addition of the privacy screen doesn't add any square footage to the floor plan of the house. And it seems to be a fairly de minimis change to the usage of the non-conforming side yard, of the encroachment in the non-conforming side yard.
Correct.
That's correct.
Robin, are you
I have a question if we're,
calculations or do you want this out of diagram?
That was fine. That was what I was trying to get the answer to. Now I got it. So thank you. That's all I was looking for.
You're
I
welcome.
have, I think, a fairly quick question. Can you tell us I could guess, I have an idea of the northeast, west, south, where you are on the house, just so I don't make an assumption.
Oh, yeah, north.
So the back of the house is facing what direction?
Oh, it's within a degree of directly looking east.
East. So the
So,
front back is east-west?
correct.
Okay,
The water is to the east behind the house.
right. It made sense to me. That's what the assumption I was making. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about light and the traveling of the sun in terms of the east-west direction. What I'm getting at.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you know, if I can, because so the board's not confused about something, because you have materials in your file that are not labeled correctly. So if you see this is being called the east. Can you see my cursor?
No, but you're not
Wait, I'm
sharing
sorry.
at the moment.
I'm sorry, wait, here we go. So the board's not confused. This diagram submitted, you know, in opposition, I didn't say that, is, you know, this facade is labeled east. That is incorrect. Just so the board's aware that, you know, it's a,
That would really be south.
yeah, it's facing north, looking south,
Facing-
correct.
Okay.
Just so you're not confused.
Do the board members have any other questions at this time?
Total height of your new building compared to total height of your existing. I know it's under the permitted maximum height, but so what is because I don't know if you're raising your first floor at all or just raising, I know your second floor is going to be taller, but I didn't know if your first floor was also going to be taller. So
Yeah, so you want a visual or actual dimension?
I want dimensions, sorry, I like,
You said earlier 35 and it's 31, it's gonna be 31.8.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
but
be
how much-
31.8, so what is it now?
yeah.
Oh, well, you know, that's the high point. So that's, you know, as you can see in this illustration, you know, the majority of the house is within inches of the height of the existing top of the ridge. And there are areas that are lower than the existing ridge, large areas that are lower than the existing ridge. But yeah, at its highest point, yeah, it's above the.
Okay, so just clarifying, so, oh, I see, so this, and you have to go back to that drawing you were just showing.
Sure.
So your new house is going to be straight across as compared to a TP shape. Sorry, that may not be the right name a letter A, the opposite, upside down letter A shape, or I guess not the upside down, but the letter A or a TP shape. And the new one will just be flat. And I understand, I don't mean flat in any other sense, but it'll just be straight horizontal as opposed to having this sort of
Former, the
frame shape, correct?
Right.
And the height of that flat piece is lower than the top of the current A-frame top and parts, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand that. What is the current height of the top of the ridge for the current house?
Okay. Let's see if we have that on the drawings.
I see numbers, but I didn't want to have to do the math to add them up.
Yeah.
Mm, 5, 14. 22.
Okay, so 8 plus 8, 16,
6.
30, 16, 20, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, plus another 23. So approximately 27 feet from grade.
And the new house, the proposed plans are 31.8.
Yeah, that's the maximum. But you can see from the front, the majority is equal or slightly less in the majority, if you
Okay.
follow what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So has the applicant been able to figure out, especially based upon our questions tonight, exactly what variances they need and that they're asking for?
Yes, we need a combined side yard setback variance and the lesser side yard setback variance. And those are detailed in our January submission, in my narrative on page 2.
all right, well, why don't you just say what they are so we can,
Sure. So for minimum side yard, which is the lesser side, 4.5 feet. And for the combined side yard, I believe it's 12.75. So the required is 45, we have 32.25. So it's 12.75.
now, right now, that's the same as the footprint is, correct?
Correct, yes,
So that's not modifying except for going up.
correct.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions of the applicant before we go see if anyone else wants to speak?
I just want to say it would be helpful to me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of numbers and calculations done kind of on the fly to kind of bring a table of all the, with all the answers to the questions, so we can see it more
I think
clearly.
an excellent idea, Greta, I agree, and that's why I asked Robin, but Robin felt comfortable at that point when it, because I guess you understand that, Robin, but I think it would be helpful to do a table if I didn't see one, but the problem is that my plans are too small to combination of vision and size of plan, bad combination. But I think it's a matter of a table that would indicate, yeah, because much of it is careful because you're not expanding, you're not going out. It's basically a going up, right?
Well, that's absolutely right. It's going up, and the tricky part about those calculations is that there is existing second story space within that setback that's being modified. So, it's not as simple as like, here's the rectangular box we're adding. But I totally appreciate what you're asking for.
I think that would be helpful. I mean, Brian, anyone else have any feeling on that? We should, I think having the schedule,
Yeah, of course.
I think so.
It's good to have it in one place in front of us instead of
Right.
my illegible and unclear notes.
So I also don't want to be unfair to the architect and others because you're going to be doing these on the fly a little bit.
Do you understand what our questions were? Do you need us to review what it was we asked for, that what we would like to see in the table, or do you feel prepared?
It would be helpful to do a recap. So my understanding is it would be the square footage on the left and the right of the pre-existing non-conforming square footage compared to the proposed square footage that's within the side yards, left and right.
Non-conforming side yard.
And
Non-conforming.
if you could itemize, if you could separate left and right.
And do the math and show the delta.
I
Right.
think so, and I think show, what is going to be, what's the mass that's going to be built up? What's the additional square footage that's, forget what you're going to use it for. So we have a sense of what's additional up on top. And then you have some places where it's being reduced, I believe, correct?
Correct. So we can show the net.
If you could concentrate on that, it would be helpful for all of us, and it would just clear things up because you've explained it, and I understand what you're saying, but I think the numbers, look, as I see it, your numbers are not that large, but it's hard to discern what they really are and where they're going to be, where they're addition, where they're reduced, et cetera.
Right.
I think it would help us get a, just confirm everything. And just going into the areas that are, well, I guess non-conform, not that you need the variance.
Understood. Rick, do you have any other questions, or do you think that we've got it from here?
No, that seems clear.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's what I need to know from you, but I have a separate, completely different question.
Go ahead.
So one of the findings for an area variance is that you can't achieve what you desire by any other means. So my question is, you're not adding a lot of space, you're adding a lot of rooms. I guess I don't exactly know what's in your existing house, but doesn't matter. What if you had to? What if you couldn't do that? Can you explain what your goals are that you couldn't achieve by building a house that did not add any floor space into the non-conforming side yard? I don't know what it was, but the question is, when you're doing it for a reason to get something, or you're doing it because you like the way it looks, or I don't know why you're doing it. So we have to, one of our variance findings is that it can't be achieved by some other means. So I want to know what it is that you're trying to achieve and what you would lose out on by not getting the variance.
Right.
Yes.
So I'll let Rick elaborate a little bit on that, but just to start, the applicants are seeking to achieve increased livable space on the second floor that falls within the floor plan now, while also keeping a building that's architecturally looks like the second floor sits on top of the first floor. So Rick, do you want to explain a little bit more about the existing nonconformities in the home and what makes that so difficult here?
Yeah,
One thing, Robin, if we could just clarify before where you have the variance now, building on top would require a variance. Because
Correct.
that was on, okay, fine.
Yeah, certainly we're not arguing that, none is required. I just thought, we found the records, it was helpful.
No, I know, but I'm saying it
And
would be,
going,
Yeah.
and going from a 1.5 story to a 2-story building is, that was substantial to be considered. So I think the records are important for the board to have. But Rick, you can
and
go
put
ahead.
it another way, I think, put it another way, it's what can you do as of right?
Well, the question isn't what you can do as of right, it's what are you not able to achieve as of right
Right.
that you want to achieve by the variance, by this variance today that you're currently seeking, right? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Sure. I mean, probably the best way to look at this is to look at the existing floor plan, particularly the first floor, the second floor, as we're discussing. So what happens, with the configuration of the dormers in the back, take chunks, they take these chunks of square footage out of the corner that doesn't exist on the first floor. So it creates quite an awkward position, situation to develop the functional spaces, for their purposes in that regard. The left-hand side of the existing house is a mess. I mean, you can see it in the photographs architecturally. I mean, it looks it's quite haphazard. Nothing lines up. And so let's just follow this line of the dormer from the rear to the front. It goes in and out and then back again. Then there's this odd carve out in this position. Then you're back out to pretty much over the existing sidewall again. So it's just not practical to be able to have to conform to this oddity, what just looks like an architectural mistake. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason for all of this jigging and jagging. So that's the primary reason. And we also described, the fact that one of the staircases is partially in the pre-existing non-conforming part of the building. So, without going to the expense of moving the staircase, 18 inches to the right, that on its own creates a difficulty to access the first floor, second floor, and so forth. So for those reasons, those are the practical reasons. Then, of course, there's a challenge architecturally to make the building look whole and pleasing, to the eye. So it's all those things in combination.
Would I also be correct in assuming that when you're on that second floor, you have those dormers, which means that while you may have floor area, you don't have the height above you beyond the dormer.
That's absolutely right.
So you're walking around in a space where you don't have ceiling height, standard ceiling heights.
Right.
Which, if you were to build on another part of the house, it certainly wouldn't accomplish being able to use the square footage that you currently have in the home.
That's correct.
Okay, now I have another question following the same one. Why can't you put so it sounds like what you're really trying to achieve is sort of more architectural appropriateness, or architectural, really make the house better, kind of make it better fitting, make it more usable. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make the space more usable. It sounds like what you're trying to do. But did you look at other possible designs of ways to do that? I don't know if you did. I'm just wondering if you did. Were there any, right? You're not adding floor area. So this is not a case where you're saying, oh, I want to add the floor area. I need to add 1,000 square feet and this is the best place to put it. So instead you have a different problem. You're trying to make it more functional, it sounds like, by filling in some of the dormers, making the dormers area work better. But did you look at trying to do it other ways that didn't, I don't know. I don't know how, if it could, I don't know any, I'm not an architect, I don't know. But could you have, for example, purely for example, and there may be lots of good reasons why you can't do it. Could you have, for example, built out the front on the, in the L-shaped portion, made the L-shaped portion smaller. So, right, you build out in the front and you reconfigure things so that there's more space there. I don't know. Did you look at any other configurations to do this? That's my question.
Yes, we did. We did. We looked at variations, and it just became pretty obvious quickly that we were replacing one train wreck with another. To put it in that kind of language, it was a mess. It just it's not something you be proud of, either the neighbors, the owner, or architectural review board, etc. So you can sort of visualize what it would be. It's just a mishmash.
Okay. What I'll also ask you to do when you do this chart we discussed earlier, square footage, that we discussed earlier on both sides, you might, in light of the question just asked, deal with the utilization, the additional usable space inside because of the height, the dormer impact. So although, to me, that has some bearing because dormers do inhibit and impair the utilization of space.
Yes.
So I think that goes to, you're achieving a benefit to a large degree. I think when you get rid of dormers to some degree, without you achieve a benefit without a related expansion.
Yeah. Sort of.
That would be helpful if you would include that. Okay.
I also, Chair, if I could just address one thing that Member Kramer raised.
Okay.
In terms of expanding to the front or the back of the home, that was looked at, and it kind of was duplicative to a sense, because you have some existing rooms that we're just seeking to straighten the roof line on. That would also have increased impacts, right? Increased impervious surface, increased visual impacts, and it was just greater massing, right, altogether. So, the applicant determined that sort of thing was really not feasible, and it wasn't necessary here because it's more than what their objectives are.
By the way, I think that council's reference to increasing impervious surface is very, very valid. It's something that we need to do.
So let's try and move along here if we could. Is there any, the applicant is completed for now. How long will it take? You can think about in the meantime how long it'll take to get us that other information, because we want to move this along. And we can now, unless someone else has a question, I'd like to move on if there's other people who want to speak. Because it is already, the hour is going later.
Go on.
We can get you that information next week.
Okay. All right, let's do that as soon as we can, because we may have a short meeting at some point, and this might give us an opportunity. We'll see. All right. Is there anyone else here who wants to speak in the
I
public?
promoted somebody. Hold on, I'm promoting a few people.
Thank you, Ms. Mattel.
Okay, I've promoted everybody. Everyone just needs to unmute and start their video. They all have access.
Hey, somebody here?
Yep.
Okay, Because it is already 9 o'clock. Let's keep moving. Okay. Please identify yourself and who you heard before.
Arthur, I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Either that or you're whispering. Which one?
You're not muted, but your sound may not be on, Arthur.
If he can't speak, how about if we go to somebody else? I don't know if there's an
Yeah.
order that we need to follow,
No.
but he
Is
figures out his
is
solution.
anyone here who wants to speak?
Hey, can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. You were stopped in, you were at the last meeting, I believe.
I was, yes, Helen Mach,
Yes.
Mr. Mach, speaking on behalf of Terry Vandal and Isabel Phoenix, the owners of the home next door to the Coopers at 1280 Flagler Drive. Would like to start off by thanking the board for their serious consideration of the neighbors' concerns and for taking the time to visit the homes of the Vandals and the Coopers. We did submit 2 letters to the board, one before the last meeting and one yesterday, which set forth the Vandal position on the proposed project and that it requires variances, which I think everyone knows and agrees with. And then on balance, the detriment to the neighbors outweighs the benefit to the applicant. I'm not going to repeat what we've included
Thank you.
in our letters. I'd just like to focus the board on 3 things. First, the scale of the proposed project, and that bulk matters. In all of the pages submitted by the applicant's team, there is no recognition of the volume of the proposed structure. There is a lot of talk of staying within the existing footprint and the height limitation, but there's no recognition. I think somebody needs to mute. There's no recognition. Okay. There's no recognition of the cumulative effects of everything that is being proposed. We cite a recent case in our letter where the Seacliff Zoning Board of Appeals denied a variance to allow square footage where the structure met the height requirement under the zoning because the increased height resulted in bulk 40% above the permitted floor area. The ZBA chair in that case said that the board had a duty to consider the substantiality of the variance, not just in relation to mathematical calculations, but also totality of the circumstances. We agree. Second,
What's the name of that?
that's the Guardino case cited page, excuse me.
Oh, no, just give me your site, that's all.
Oh, site on page 4. I see
It's
it.
on page 4.
Yeah,
And-
it's in New York, it's a,
With the Supreme Court Nassau County case decided March 2020.
and it's on, you don't have, there's no reported citation, is there? No.
It's a Lexus site.
Yeah.
It's in our letter.
Can you please, we always like to have, it's not always easy for some members of the board to get copies of cases. So particularly if it's just on Lexis, it may make it difficult. So if you would please submit that copy, a copy of that case. Today.
I missed what you said.
I just asked if you could submit a copy of the case.
Yes, I will. So second, to the extent that the Coopers had a vested right in the existing non-conforming FAR, the new improvements are not entitled to that same protection. A pre-existing non-conforming structure is not legalized for future construction and requires a variance.
Excuse me, could you put your mic off? Could we move?
Yeah, I think he just did.
Thank you.
Arthur, the mic does work. I'm going to leave it as muted. Just don't touch anything. When you're ready to talk, I'll unmute you.
Thank you.
Okay. So this principle makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the position that because there's a minimal decrease of 3 square feet of FAR, the applicants can remove the entire second floor and rebuild a structure that's 500 square feet more than the required FAR of 5,118 square feet. So in addition to the variances for construction in the non-conforming setback areas, a variance from FAR is also required here. Third, the fourth factor under the statutory balancing test, adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions, cannot be evaluated until the board knows whether there will be land disturbance to meet flood protection requirements established by FEMA and incorporated into Chapter 186 of the Village Code. We understand that the applicants have said that there will be no at-grade disturbance because they're not proposing changes to the building footprint. But this structure that they are taking the entire second floor off of was not constructed to be flood resistant. And therefore there's a risk and a possibility that there will need to be land disturbance to meet FEMA and Chapter 186 requirements. So there was a question tonight by one of the members as to what the base elevation requirement is and what the elevation is of the structure. I would urge the board to look at these numbers carefully. I'm not sure that the applicant's representative answered the question correctly. So I just want to point that out. And you know, tonight what has been a lot of questions and answers and new information that we haven't seen. I don't even know if it's posted on the website, this information on a 1990 variance. We would like an opportunity to review that and review any new information that is submitted to the board and considered as part of its deliberations. So because of that, we would ask that the hearing on this matter stay open.
I have a question. I was perplexed by something. You
Sure.
said that they need a floor area variance, and I didn't understand why you think they need a floor area variance.
I think they need a floor area variance because they're taking down the entire second floor and they're rebuilding it.
So
They've
you're
lost-
saying,
yeah,
so essentially just, you're saying that demolition of the floor space is essentially eliminating it and then they're putting it up again. It's not one continuous application, one sort of application process during which they do certain work. They demolish some, they rebuild some. You're saying, no, you don't look at it like that. From what you're arguing is, no, you consider it separately. Demolition one step, rebuilding separate.
yes, and I also think that the exemption under 342.65 doesn't apply here. The code says no building shall be erected, constructed, altered, rebuilt, or enlarged except in compliance with this chapter. A very similar provision has been interpreted by the second department to mean that it doesn't, pre-existing non-conforming structures are not legalized for future construction and that variances are required.
You're saying there's a Second Circuit case, and did you cite that in your papers?
Second department case.
Second department case, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. You're saying there's a second department case that says that even where you have a pre-existing non-conforming condition, if you alter it, you don't give credit to that condition?
Yes, it's Frisetta versus Zoning Board of Appeals, 626 NYS 2nd 263.
I'm sorry, 626, what?
It's in her
Oh,
papers, I see it.
Yeah,
What is it?
626 NYS 2nd 263.
Right.
I think a question for Dennis, if he's on. I don't know if he's.
I'm here.
Okay,
Don't worry,
good.
I'm always watching.
Here's a question for you. So following up on what Helen said, How does the village consider? I want to know what the village practices, because for example, I know what New York City, how New York City considers it, just because I do more there. But in the village, if someone has has a building and demolishes, excuse me, Ira, Mr. Milstein, could you be quiet? If while someone has a non-conforming, non-whatever building, and a non-conforming building in some way, physically conditioned, they demolish a portion of it. Does the village consider the floor area that they put back new space or not new space?
So it's not a simple answer. In our code, there is a section, I can't quote the section right now to what the listing is, but there is 6 to 8 months, don't hold me to it, giving a rough answer right now, that the whole thing would have to be put back to conform to what is existing. Does that answer your question? Probably not.
So let me ask you this. So let me just, I'm going to sum it up if I understand you correctly. What our code says is that if you demolish a non-conforming condition, you have some limited amount of time to rebuild that non-conforming condition. Otherwise, you lose the benefit of it.
Correct.
Okay. Can you, I understand you don't know what it is now, but at some point, perhaps after the meeting, can you please look into that and let the board know, and we will let the applicant know what that is or what the section is, or just give us the section number, something so we can find it, so we understand it.
I can do that. Brittany, can you please make note to the question on the time, and then I will review tomorrow.
No problem.
Okay, because that will go to the question that we just heard. So, or the statement we just heard about floor area. So thank you.
And I guess also whether we ever, whether the building department ever, applied that condition that, the time lapse was longer and there was a consequence to it. I don't know. How do you enforce that? I'm not sure.
So if I may,
I can't get into this conversation right now.
can we just like cut him off completely so we don't have this continuing?
Can you zap that mic, please? Thank you.
Robin, if I may, this is Rob Stout. I can read what I think is a relevant portion of section 342-65. And that is a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals shall not be required for an addition to, enlargement, or expansion of any such building unless the proposed alteration increases or expands the existing nonconformity of the building or creates new nonconformity.
No, that doesn't go to my question. That's not the issue here. We understand that. That's why we're giving these, that's why they've come in for a variance, because there's something. The question I have is very different. When you have an existing non-conforming condition, and when you demolish a piece of it, you have to some degree eliminated that non-conforming condition. If they demolish the second floor of the building, let's just make it up. They demolished the entire second floor of their building and only left the first floor. They could not come back in 5 years and say, whoa, I had a second floor, I want to put it back. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. So, and they wouldn't be grandfathered or anything to it. So the question is, does the code have a provision in it, which is what Dennis was going to look for? Does the code have a provision that says it can't be demolished for more than 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, whatever it is, lots of, whatever that number is. And that's what he's going to figure out, whether there is, because if not, then the fact that they're demolishing and rebuilding is irrelevant because it's not considered new floor area. It's considered the existing floor area. So it's a question of whether or not when they demolish and then rebuild, the new floor space is new floor area. And then Greta followed up with a good question, which is, even if that's true, does the village ever enforce that provision, and has it ever said, whoa, you didn't finish in your X months, you got to go for a variance or whatever, and issue a stop work order?
So this is Dennis again, from the building department. Yes, since I've been in the village, it has been done, and it has been done by me multiple times, where it was a pre-existing non-conforming, and they didn't make that time, and it was cut off. So they had to lose. It was regarding an apartment with an office attached. They wanted to have the office attached to the apartment, and they missed the time. So therefore it went back to storage and no longer an office because it wasn't conforming to the zone.
All right, so if you just could give us that timeline so that we know what it is and useful for everyone else to know what it is also. Thank you.
If I may, the pre-existing nonconformity of the structure is lost with respect to what's happening in the side yard setbacks. So I think everyone agrees that variances are required here. So
if I could,
Can we clarify? We're talking about perhaps demolishing the second floor. We're not talking about demolishing the whole footprint of the house that's existing in non-conforming side yard. Is that true? The first floor will stay standing during construction, and we're talking about some demolition or changes to the second floor. Is that correct? So they're not going to lose their non-conforming building footprint in the non-conforming yard because they're not taking that away. And so what we're considering is the expansion of the nonconformity because they're going up over it. Whether or not they're building a new floor there or not, it's the same variance that we would consider. It might change our mind or something about it, whether it's a. Sorry.
No, if they lost the non-conforming
Sorry. Hey, I want to stay with questions for them, because if not, we're going to just have to end this at some point earlier than I'd like to. So we can deliberate.
So my question, Dave, is, are they doing anything to the building envelope in the existing side yard? Or are we only talking about what's above it?
Above it. That's what they've said. You tell me.
Thank you, Dave.
That's what they've said. I mean,
Yes, let's move on.
I also have, thank you, Meg. Now, Ms. Mouse, one question I have for you is, you cited, I know, one case that.
Can I speak on this issue?
Not right now, no. Ms. Mouse, you're commenting on the rights, on vested rights and how they would impact that. And even in citing, I guess that, I don't know, what is it, the facade, but they all become creatures of, those cases don't hold it as a matter of common law or right. They all relate it to the codes of the municipalities. So for example, in that case, they're discussing it there. I guess it was Judge Floyd, and then the second department gets the case. And they're saying basically they're relying on the ISLIP code because it's an ISLIP case. So I'm saying I think it would be helpful. Are any of these? Sometimes there's requirements, but they're based upon interpretation of the code or the application of a code. So a municipality, for example, as I understand the law on this, you can change the code and then you can decide. A municipality can say, well, those things can remain forever. They can't remain forever. If there's a change, if they're destroyed, how long it will be. But those are creatures of the enabling legislation, the enabling codes, not of a generic law. Because at worst case scenario, if they make you remove them, then you have a right of taking. But so I just ask you, on your cases, are many, and we'll take a look at them, but I think it would be helpful. Do they rely upon codes, different codes? And if so, are they similar to?
They do, Mr. Chair, they rely on codes.
Right.
And particularly in the Fresenda case, the code language is very similar to the code language in the Village of Mamaroneck zoning code.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a look at that. All right, and I could not, that other case that's unreported, you'll have to send it because it's not in Westlaw.
Okay.
Right, quick look, that's Alexis.
I'll send it to Brittany this evening.
Okay, or you can circulate it to, if you want to send it to me, we'll circulate it around, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, it's probably best to just give it to her. All right. Is there anything else on this from you?
Yes, I would like to make some comments.
Excuse me. I'm talking to Ms. Mouth. As soon as.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
We try to do this in a quick order here. Okay, I think we understand your point. You've made several submissions and we have them.
and again, we would like the opportunity to review what has been recently submitted.
Okay.
And, you
Well,
know,
if it's, you'll locate that, because apparently we're not going to close tonight based upon what I've heard before, because they're going to be submitting something else. So thank you.
Helen, those items were posted to the website, so all of that is already on the website on Novus as of this afternoon.
okay,
There will be additional materials submitted. And I
Yes,
think
those were already added.
okay.
No, Ms. They haven't been added if they haven't been received by you yet. Because I believe that
The items that she's talking about from Kristen from this afternoon, I posted on Novus. Those are there.
okay, but the ones that they're going to be providing.
Yes, that I will circulate once received and post once received.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, next person, you want to speak?
Yes, I would like to
Good evening.
speak, please. My name is Arthur Wexler. I've been retained by Mr.
Could you turn off you're getting feedback, so I think you need to turn off your sound. You have a speaker on, maybe that's what's doing it.
Can you hear me better now?
Much better now.
Look, computer. Look, it's being turned off right now.
Thank you. I've had
My
that
name
happen.
is Arthur Wexler. You have to shut yours off.
Good evening.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, again.
It's not an advertisement. My name is Arthur Wexler. I'm an architect. I've been retained by Mr. and Mrs. Ira Milstein, who live at 1240 Flagler Drive. I just want to point out a couple of things. I went through these plans almost with a fine tooth comb. The applicant is proposing to demolish almost all of the partitions on the second floor, except for, I think, a bathroom, 3 walls, and a center partition partially down to the plywood of the first floor of the second floor. They're going to rebuild the second floor with a ceiling height of 9 feet 8 inches, where now it is 7 foot 10 inches. The resultant of that is going to be a structure, as I showed in the drawings, which I was questioned by the architect for the applicant, that was misleading. And it was not misleading, because what you see from 1240 Flagler Drive in the proposal is a wall. It's a wall that has approximately, as shown on the drawing, unless I can share my my screen, has approximately 1,741 square feet, where the present wall at that same point on the existing house has 924 square feet, which yields an 88.4% increase in the wall that my applicant is going to see from their property. On the other side of the property, facing 1280, the increase will produce, hold on a minute, I got it here. An increase of 31.6%. At the last meeting, a question was asked to the architect of what is the bulk of this house that's being proposed? And I went through the calculation. I went back to my high school years of solid geometry. I took the PDFs and I calculated the bulk of the addition and also the bulk in each of the 2 side non-conforming sides. I'm going to read you. Because of the proposed design and the increase in height of the ceiling on the second floor, the bulk of the proposed application only on the second floor, because that's what's really in question now, the first floor stays as is 42.4% increase in bulk. When you analyze the both side yards, the side yard that faces 1280, the increase goes up 97% in volume. And that's what you see. You see a wall that fills in the triangles, And that is in their face. On the Millstein side of the property, the increase goes to 70%. Well, hold on a moment. Give me a moment. I don't want to get that. I don't want to mislead you. Hold on a second floor, one of the west. It's 97. And on the Millstein side of the property, the increase in bulk is 73% of what there is now. That is rather a drastic increase in the volume of the building that's being built and what my client is looking at. The drawings that I did present to you, which is SK1, which was the view from the Millstein property, and the view from SK2, which is from 1280's property, is accurate. It is not a misleading at all. It's taken at that point, and that's the wall that they are going to be faced with. So I feel that in this case, that the application should be denied or modified to appease the neighbors.
Can I ask you, when I'm looking at this elevation,
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer with my calculations.
Brian?
yeah, when you're talking about.
You guys had, and you also had in the past conversation about what's happening on the side of the house that faces Long Island Sound, they are building projecting the second floor terrace 2 feet out further than it presently exists on the first floor. The roof of that structure is going out 6 feet beyond where it is now towards the sound. So all this adds up to more bulk, much more construction.
Is this bulk mainly
I think
with
you're
the
muted.
height?
I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you?
I don't know.
I can't hear you.
Can other people hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay. I think I can do that.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear anybody now, or are you on mute? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can't believe this.
You can't hear anybody.
Next time I'm doing it in my office.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you in quite an echo. Can you hear us?
I know, if I pull that away, I can't speak to you. For some reason, I'm at Mr. Millstein's house and I'm having problems with their computer right at the moment.
All right.
Can you? 1 minute.
What would you like?
I want to hear what Brian has to say.
Okay, hold on.
1 moment, please.
You can't hear us at all?
Here you go.
Guess not.
Please, and please.
All right, so
Brian,
if you
can
want
you
to dial in too, you may want to dial in from a phone at least. If you don't need to share your screen or anything, you can call in.
Can you hear us?
Apparently not.
No, okay.
Frustrating.
Arthur, can you hear me? It's Helen.
Hold on.
Whitney, maybe just send him an email or put it into chat
Yeah.
suggesting he call in
Yeah,
someplace.
I don't
Because
know
if he
why I
can't
thought
hear
I
us,
had better
he
authority
can't
over.
hear us, he's not going to be able to
Yeah.
do what you suggest. 'cause he
I
won't-
know.
Yes.
I was hopeful.
Name and chat. I can call in. Where am I calling?
There we go.
Where am I calling?
Brittany, can you give them the number?
Yep.
I'm not getting a number.
Okay. 9:30. We'll move on. All right. Can you hear me? You can't hear me.
Can you still hear me?
We can
Yeah.
hear you.
For some reason,
But we're gonna-
Brittany, if he can't see that, if he doesn't, or maybe he sees it now that you've posted something there.
Well, I think he's given us a submission, and I guess he can go to the adjourned meeting.
Okay, he got it.
Can you hear us now?
I have to add him one moment. He's not calling in.
All right. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? We'll come back to this in a minute. Brittany, is there anyone else who wants to speak?
No, I have no hands up. raised.
Okay. Given the fact that we have two hearings and it's 9:30, and we're going to adjourn this to get other information, and we have submissions from him, we'll wait another half a minute or so. He can dial in, but if not, let's move ahead. He's unable to hear us, I gather.
We're keeping the meeting open, right? So he would have another
Okay,
opportunity.
we'll keep the meeting open, and he's made a written submission. He can make another one.
Right, and we'll be able to ask questions next time, and perhaps the applicant can also address.
Yeah, the percentages. You've got the applicant has heard that. I think that was the main portion of his presentation.
And while he may not be able to hear me, my question was going to be about, why this is happening. Is it because they're changing the location of the ridge line? Because we know they're not going up
Yeah.
really further. But if now the ridge line is going front to back as opposed side to side, I'd like to know why this condition that he's claiming is happening. I'd just like an explanation for it.
That's very good, Brian. I concur with you. Why don't we do this? I mean, I think it will
can
also,
you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, if you have anything you want to wrap up at this point with anything, you've given the percentages. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? I think, Brian, you have a question for him, don't you?
The question was simply, what change is creating this wall, as you call it? Is it because the ridge line is now going in a different direction, or?
No, I can
because-
answer that very
Okay.
clearly. The house is like a cape house, which means that there's exterior walls with a ridge, a steep roof raft is going down to the top plate of the first floor walls, exterior walls, and then dormers pushed out. What is being proposed are rectangular forms. Not only, so you're filling in all of those triangular spaces with living space.
And there's
So
no,
that,
but
I'm sorry.
behind a dormer, isn't there a roof line
yeah, there's a
of-
roof line, but
of a
that's,
structure behind it?
yeah, that's 7 feet, it's approximately, I haven't been in the house, but I would assume with a ceiling that's 7'8", it's maybe about 7'6" 7'6" at the exterior wall. And that wall is gonna go up to 9 foot, 9'10". A foot or 12 or 14 inches of construction will take you up to 11 feet. And then they have a third floor, which goes up another 8.5 feet, all facing 1240 Flagler Drive. The big
There's a-
difference in the volume and what you see from the properties.
You're saying they're proposing a third floor?
They're proposing a third floor, that's where that stair goes up to gain access to the roof decks. And that space is probably about 180 square feet in area.
Well, they said that the overall height of the structure is going to be similar, if not shorter.
Well, that was not correct.
Than the current ridge line of the house.
That's not correct. They have trellises up there. They have a lot of construction on the roof.
They say that the maximum height is going to be 31 feet 8 inches.
Well, Rick can answer that better than I can. But if he's going to the ridge, this is about another almost story higher than the ridge. And there are solid walls that are closing in private those areas on the roof structure, which adds more bulk and more volume to the building.
Well, maybe this is something that the applicant can address for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had time to consider these specific issues that are being brought up.
And all that impact just impacts. It looks like, in my mind, it's a nicely designed house, no question about it. It needs a much more property.
What if they did it as of right and it was it?
That's a good question. I thought about that. I think you have to take, if you want to stay in the same design, you have to shift over a rectangular form more towards the center of the house, do a colonnade under it leading into the house, and get your volume that way without building in the required side yard. It'll take skill and a lot of study.
But it's not, the side yard modification is not particularly great, is it?
Can you repeat that again?
What's your understanding of the side yard variance difference?
I think it's a great increase in the volume in the required side yards.
No, but
So-
if you were inside the side yard, if you didn't breach it, if you went to the as of right side yard, what's the difference from where they wanted to where they could build without a variance?
Clarify a little bit. I mean, visually what the difference is?
No. Where they could build. In other words, how many feet difference?
In what they require, you could probably solve their needs.
Well, let me ask you that other question which you touched on. And that question is visually. Let's say they built more towards the center of the house. They would invariably have to go up. So
No,
what
they won't. They
difference-
can put it on, columns. They can make it quite handsome. I'm talking about the leg that comes out on the north side of the house. I call it the east side, but north side. That goes from the 73-foot long elevation.
The north side would be to the other neighbor's house.
No, the north side would be towards 1240.
Oh, your side.
Right.
Now,
And
what,
you're saying-
your client has a house there now?
Yes, he owns the property, buildable property that's next to it. And his house is next to that buildable lot.
And that's unimproved, correct?
Yes, the lot in between, but it's still a saleable lot. It will diminish the value of that lot. What's being proposed.
How long has your client owned that?
No, which one, the house or the lot?
Both, I'll take both.
11 years ago.
Yep, the house?
And the house in 1974, 1970s. We've been living in the house since 1970.
And the vacant lot is 11 years.
Yes.
All right. Unless, how does the board feel about we adjourn this now? So we can move on to others okay, what we're gonna do is adjourn this now. We're gonna get the other information as soon as you can. You check for when it's on, so you can all see it. And is there anything, does the applicant understand how Mr. Wexler said he got the numbers he has or not? Is 97%?
No,
I'm sorry?
no, there's no material, graphic material or anything.
Have you,
that's
did you submit something that explains how you got your percentages for the increases?
Yes, I can. It was
Okay, that's,
very
all.
painful and time consuming.
Well, then don't submit it. That's up to you, sir.
No, I can. I have to put it in the form that you can read.
Okay, well, all right then. I just don't want you to undergo pain if it's not necessary, that's all.
No, pain meaning that I have to go back 70 years in my head.
All right, well, high school was good. Forgot who my trig or my geometry teachers were, but
But it's for solid geometry.
so be it. All right, then. But I think it's
Thank
the
you.
consensus that we will adjourn this matter. And I would like you to please follow up as soon as you can, because if we do, we'll probably take this up in April, but if we can meet before, we might very well do that. But, and thank you all very much. So this matter stands adjourned.
All right,
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. To the applicant, good evening as well. Okay, next matter on, next public hearing is 1346 Raleigh Road.
Let me get out of this one.
And this is a area variance in connection with, let's see. This is the deck, I believe. Is the applicant here on this matter?
If you can raise your hand, anyone who wants to speak.
Maybe the applicant fell asleep. That's definitely a positive.
Hello.
Oh, how are you? Good evening.
Hi, good. I'm learning a lot.
Okay. All right, can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Megan Walton. I'm the architect for Ken and Addison Forget. And
Okay.
Ken is on as well. There they are.
That's super. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry, we're running late, but we are.
that's
problem.
okay. I think we're a little more straightforward, so I think we can get to it kind of quickly. As it is now, my clients, should I share my screen?
Please.
I think that'll make it easier. So what we want to do, let me, I'm going to go to the pictures first. So my client, they're very close to their neighbor's property line here on the left side of the house. But as it is now, there's an existing stoop. And this stoop, I guess you can, this is how this stoop kind of connects to their backyard, to their back patio. And what we want to do is connect this stoop from this living room, what's going to be the living room door, to the back patio, and then also to the driveway as well. So the existing stoop is already 3 feet into the non-conforming area. What they need here, they need a combination of the 2 side yards to be 14 feet and the minimum to be 6 feet. So as it is now, we already have an encroachment on that area. And it really isn't a safe connection from the house. So because the house is a split level, the back of the house are the bedrooms, the front of the house are the public spaces. And as it is now, there's not a good connection from the front of the house to the backyard. And they have 3 little kids. They have older parents. We just need a safer connection from the public spaces of the front of the house to the backyard. So as you can see in this picture here, it's a little bit difficult of a grade. The stairs are actually not facing the driveway. And so there's a few reasons why we really want this pathway, this deck, about 3.5 feet wide, just wide enough to be to code and have the proper clearance, to get to the backyard. We do have more space on the right side of the house, but the left side is where the driveway is. It's where the door is to the living spaces, to the public living spaces. And then it's also where there's an existing patio that we'd love to connect to, if possible. So you can see the proposal in this 3D drawing is taking the steps and facing them now towards the driveway. So from the driveway, they'll be able to go up the steps into the house, into the living room, and then into the more public spaces in the front of the house. And then they'll be able to connect on a path, a narrow kind of deck, just wide enough to get them to the back of the house, to their yard. So the existing stoop is about 27 square feet. And then what we're proposing is about 97 square feet. So you can see that it's connecting to this existing flagstone patio.
What's the current width? What's the current width
The
of the
current width
stoop?
is 3 feet, but because we're gonna have some structure, I wanted to make sure there was an easy clearance of 3 feet with the handrail.
So you're proposing what
3
width?
foot. I was proposing 3'6", but we are happy to, make it just as wide as it needs to be to code. 3 feet.
I have a question about, right, where is this is the entrance to the house is in the front of the house.
Yes.
So are you now adding a second? That's essentially what you're doing. You're adding a second entrance to go to the house so that you can enter from the side as well as from the front?
Yes, so they have an existing side entrance right now. And it's the entrance that they'd like to be able to use from the driveway, and that they'd like for their older family members to be able to get more directly into the house. Ken and Addie, you can correct me if there's anything I'm saying wrong or anything you want to add. But oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think just the way it stands now, there's like a huge, probably like a 2-foot step to get into the backyard from that pathway that exists under those stairs. And it's really unsafe. It's a tripping hazard. My kids have fallen off of it so many times. So we just want to try to make it level when we are going to the backyard.
But no, I'm confused about something. If you look at the photo, that's not this one, but the other photo. So you have steps going up to this the living room and then down from the living room. What is from the front of the house if you wanted to enter this living space right now from the driveway?
Yes.
So not the front of the house, the side of the house the side of the house where you're what we're talking about today. If you want to enter the living space, that door, right now you have a door on the side of the house, not the front of the house.
Okay.
The side of the house. This door. If I wanted to go into that door from the driveway, I'm walking all the way straight back to the stairs and then reversing to myself.
Yes.
Oh, correct. So what you are doing is you are bringing the stairs to the front.
Right.
And then extending a deck.
Yes.
To the back in order to get to that. Okay.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure I was.
Exactly.
Side yard, the side configuration. Okay.
Yes, and there is a front door as well, but this would be how we'd connect to the backyard so the kids can get to the backyard. So as it is now, if we just had the front door, they'd have to go around the front door and then back up this path, which is not really safe.
What could you, is there no way, I don't know what's inside the house. I know it's in the plans, but didn't look.
Yeah, I can go to the plans.
Can you, just because we're looking at alternatives, right? So one of the questions is an alternative.
Sure.
What could you just, since the rear yard that you're trying to get to is in the back of the house, could you not just put a door in the, what room is there so that you could put a
They
door
said
to the back?
bedrooms.
So this is a split level house. So when you walk into the house, here's your front door. Here's the, well, you know, as it is now, this is the existing plan, but the back of the house is not changing. When you walk into the house, you're on a level where there's going to be the kitchen, there's going to be the living room, but then you have to walk up 4 steps. And then you're in the back of the house, which is higher than the front of the house. And then these are bedrooms in the back of the house.
What level is the deck on?
So the deck is on the level of the living spaces.
Okay, so if the deck is on
Yeah.
the living space is the living room, why couldn't you just put a door from the living room onto the deck straight back and go out that way without needing this new side yard condition?
Oh, because the living room is in the front of the house. You can't get from the front of the house to the
Okay,
back of the
so
house.
so that was my first question. What
Yeah.
is back there? What is that space? Oh, that's a bedroom, but that's the split.
Yes, so it's higher. It's higher than the existing patio.
Okay, I got it.
And yeah, so yeah, the front of the house is lower, 4 steps lower than the back of the house.
I got it. So
And then
back
the
of the
other
house- so the
problem is,
deck is lower than the back of that. So if you
Yes.
wanted to, I realize you might not want to, but if you wanted to put a door from the back of the house into the rear yard, you'd have to put some steps there.
yes, and there's a big rock outcropping right outside the back, which I could show you in another image.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay. So, I don't have a great image, but this is the back of the house. This is the patio we're trying to connect to. And then this rock outcropping actually comes quite close to the back of the house.
Okay.
So there's not a great option from the back of the house to the backyard.
Okay, thank you. That explains.
Yeah, sure.
So I have a couple of quick questions. Based upon these drawings, you have an air conditioning condenser where you're currently thinking about putting the staircase
Yeah.
down towards the front of the house.
Right.
Where do you
Right.
plan to relocate the air conditioner condenser?
Yeah, we're planning to locate it under that deck pathway. Boop, 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 boop. So
So
we'll
you're-
have space underneath a little bit. So right now it's where the stairs are.
Correct.
We're planning to put it back a little further.
And that's up to code. You can put an air conditioner condenser underneath your what are you calling this, a patio or?
Yeah, a deck, a path. Yeah, I
Deck.
mean, it's fully ventilated. I don't see any issues. I don't know if the building department would have any.
I wouldn't want to be Marilyn Monroe when that thing goes on. Now, another
Right.
question,
Yeah,
and it's hard, but if you look on some of the pictures, you can find it. You have a window, which it looks like you're removing, would be under the deck and towards the back of the house on the same side of the house as that door.
yes, here.
Okay, correct. Now,
Yeah.
what does that window go into?
That is going to a storage space in the basement.
And is that being
Um,
removed or was that just not included in your drawing?
You know, it's not being removed. But it would intersect. At one point, we were talking about changing those windows slightly. But we haven't, we don't have further plans for those.
Okay, so you're telling me that that is not livable area.
No, it's a storage space adjacent to the garage.
Now, we can also see at the back of the house, which would be very proximate to where this deck ends, a large tree. Are you planning to
Right.
remove that tree?
We are planning to remove the tree. We don't have to remove the tree. We're not gonna, we are getting close to the drip line with the tree, but our deck is stopping just 3'6" to this retaining wall. So we're not going all the way aligning with the back of that the back patio. We're
Understood.
just getting to where we need it to turn the corner and
Okay.
get onto that patio.
But
But we
you
do want
are-
to take the tree
yeah.
down. Yeah, we
Okay.
do.
Do you currently have a variance for that landing, which is there, which is closer to the property line than 6 feet?
No, this house is built in 1955.
So is
So
that
it's
pre-existing
pre-existing.
non-conforming?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, Robin, to your point, in terms of making this a second entrance to the house in the front of the house, especially if there's elderly parents and little kids. I guess you could, but that's a much larger staircase than the one getting into the front door. What is that, 9 steps up?
Right. These steps are 8 inches. They're a little higher than what we would do for code and for elderly parents. And then it's also, we're getting down to the driveway, which is a lower grade.
Right, so it's a substantial staircase. And I see
Right.
and you're covering it, correct?
We're covering the staircase and the door. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
To us, we think it's a little bit easier than, there's a few purposes to this, getting from the driveway up into the living, public living spaces of the house, but then also just a safe way to get from the house to the backyard.
Understood.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Chair.
I had a little bit of difficulty seeing the mention from the lot line on the side to these stairs or to the new stairs. There seemed to be a couple of different dimensions. Could you clarify what's the existing encroachment in the side yard and what it will be?
Right, so the existing stairs are 3 feet wide. We want to go to 3'6" to take into account the structure of the covered section. At the front, we will have 3'4.5", and then towards the back, because of the angle of the property line, we have a bit more. The combination of the side yards is more than 14, so that is a good thing, but we are encroaching on this side. But we do have that combination of the 14 feet.
And a zoning table in your plans here? I might have missed it. I couldn't find a zoning table. With FAR and all the different yards and things.
Yeah, we're not changing the envelope of the house at all. But I can add that.
Yeah, there was also a question regarding a difference in the survey.
Yeah, I have the survey here.
What was your distance? I'm just trying. You have, I can't find it on right now, but it was basically.
Here's the survey. So
Yeah.
the survey does not, so the survey is only measuring to the corner of the house. And it is showing the platform, but it's not giving a dimension to the property line from that platform stoop that's existing.
Okay.
Yeah, that seemed to be the missing.
That's-
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you've got a 4-foot, was it 3 7/8 inch setback proposed?
Yeah, about 3.5 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, it's over 4 feet, but the survey doesn't pick up the 3 feet, 4.5 inches according to.
Yeah,
No.
the survey is measuring to the corner of the house, which we are not changing. And we would like to add that the neighbor does not have windows on the side of their house. So, and it is quite tucked in, this deck, it's really not going to change the character of the neighborhood in any way. We just think it adds so much to the safety of the house, and getting the kids to the backyard. So we're really hoping it's something we can do.
Have you discussed this with your neighbors and with the neighbors on that side?
Ken, do you want to
Yeah,
answer?
so hi, it's Ken. So I discussed to the two neighbors that we know well, who are across the street from us, Tony Vitetta and George Purcell. They were fine with it. We don't really know as well the neighbors to the other side, directly in front, or sorry, directly to the opposing it. But I assume if they had any concerns, they would obviously be well informed to raise them here.
I'm sorry, I was confused on who you spoke to. You have not spoken to the neighbor immediately adjacent to the
Yeah,
stairs?
I don't know how well they know us, and because we have the fence in between, we don't necessarily talk to them that much. But I would assume they would come here with any concerns.
Have they expressed any concerns to you at all, or did you hear? they haven't?
No, they're really friendly, which we should probably actually reach out more often to them. But yeah, we haven't had much chance to interact.
They received notice of this, though?
Yes.
Let me just ask, is there anyone else here who wants to speak on this application?
Chair, this is Dennis, the building inspector. I have a couple of things I want to just follow up with Brian's questions. So the window that's coming out of the basement, at the time of building permit application, we'll review that. Air conditioner, the condensing unit outside, most have a 1 foot to 3 foot clearance on the deck. So we'll make sure that's according to New York State code on the new position, if it's the same equipment or not. Regarding the steps going up and then straight back to the rear yard, for our volunteer fire department, if they're going to go up and go down, that would be a lot easier to do than, going up and straight into the back, I think would be more favorable for our fire department and the family that's living there. And then the tree, get a tree permit. We have a tree law in the village of Amerenik. So this is just me letting you guys know you're on notice. Just file a tree permit with the village manager's office.
Okay, thank you. We will.
Thanks.
Yep, we're aware of it, and we've had an arborist look at it before, and they said it was very iffy as to whether that tree would remain safe. So we're going to have it reevaluated probably as we get that permit process.
That'll come later and do the manager's office. All right, thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions of the applicant? Okay. Anyone want to move to close, or do you want to keep it open? Can't see why keeping it open. Is there a
I'll
motion?
move to close.
There's a second?
Second,
Okay. Brian?
No, I said I'd move to close.
No, I know, and we got a second, so now we're going to vote on closing.
Oh, yes, close.
There you go. I thought you would, since you made the motion.
A little
Okay,
redundant.
Greta,
yep,
Yep, okay, Robin,
Yes.
Meg, okay, I vote yes, okay. The hearing is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good evening. All
You
right.
too.
All right, the next hearing is, Yes?
Chair, I just have to step away for a couple minutes, so
Want to take
you got
5
enough
minutes?
people, you got enough people, you can.
Okay, whatever your pleasure. I mean, okay, we can, want to take a break or want to just continue? Anyone have a feeling either way? No? Okay. Do we have the next applicant here? Let's see, it's on, oh, it's at 211 Mamaroneck Avenue. I believe it's Paul Noto. This is on a renewal of the special permit for Nona Corolla Restaurant. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Paul's getting him.
Okay.
I am here.
Good evening, Paul. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I do have my client's here. I think he was going to get on. His name is Bernard Gamzee. He has a
Yep, I
7.
welcome him.
So if you see him in there, let him in, please. So good evening. Should I get started?
Yeah, if you want to wait a few minutes for Robin, if not, you can get started. It's up to you.
It's up to you. It's your
I have
meeting.
no problem with you getting started, and Robin didn't seem to have any problem with it, so.
Okay, so it's fairly straightforward. It's the Nona Corolla Restaurant at 211 Mamaroneck Avenue. They obtained a special permit from this board on September 5th, 2019, and that permit was for 18 months. 6 months later, they came to the board for what I would call an amendment of that special permit, because they wanted to extend their hours of operation. They wanted to use the outdoor dining facility, the patio, and there was a limitation on cleaning and making noise, outside of the hours of operation. For some reason, that is in your records as another special permit. And that permit was for 1 year, which coincided with the original special permit, and they both expired on March 5th of 2021. So they did not file an application to renew until now. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of it, which is they didn't really know if they'd be in business. They had they were closed for a good part of the lockdown. They didn't do a takeout, operation, so they were essentially closed for many, many months. And so they were somewhat uncertain if they would continue, and they've decided they would like to continue. So they are, operating. They also had a prior counsel who I think they had reached out to start this process. He didn't respond, and I'm not sure what the story was. So they came to me in, I guess, December and November, and here we are. So we filed in January. So essentially, we'd like just a renewal of the existing special permits. If possible, we'd like 3 years, which I know had been the norm. They are in compliance with the conditions. There are no complaints that they're aware of, no violations. So that's the story. Bernard is here. Okay, so
No violations at all?
no
Is it-
violations.
Homeowners as before, Mr. Noah?
Well, this was this was Molly Spillane's a few years ago, who I did represent. Molly's left, and as we all know, Molly's had, other issues. And I think that is probably why the board was reluctant to grant a 3-year special permit, and they imposed some significant conditions on Nona Corolla. It's a different operation. Nona Corolla is essentially, it's a restaurant. As you know, Molly's had a little more nightlife. It was more of a bar, it's more of a sports bar. So yeah, Nona Corolla has, just a different operation. So I think they are in pretty good standing with their neighbors. And in the past, I know the people who lived at the Regatta had been pretty vocal about Molly's, but according
I
to my
checked the
client,
record. There are no open complaints at this moment.
good. So I was correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Did you say that the current permits expired?
Yes, they expired
A year ago.
a year ago.
And any reason for why they didn't proceed?
Yeah, as I said, they for a long time, they were closed. They weren't operating. And so they weren't sure if they were actually going to continue.
I'm sorry.
So, I think it's not been easy for them. In fact, it's been pretty bad. But I think they would like to make a go of it. And I think they feel that we're coming out of this latest, pandemic and moving into a more manageable phase. And I think they feel they can, get enough business to keep going.
All right. Anyone, is there anyone here this evening who wants to speak on this? Any comments? Any board members have any questions further? Why don't we wait a minute for Robin in case she has a question, all right? So why don't we just take a,
I just wanted to ask, I know that Mr. Noto said that the conditions had been complied with, the current conditions, but if the operator of if the actual applicant can confirm that all the conditions have been complied with, that would be helpful for the record.
very good.
That's Bernard.
Yes, we like previously Paul stated, unfortunately, because of the lack of business influence that we didn't know if we're going to continue in business. That's the only reason that I didn't apply before. And also reach out to a lawyer. In regards of any violation, anything, I don't think, as far as I know, we didn't have anything. We've been complying with everything that, the town asked for. So I don't.
No, Bernard, I think the question was, are you in compliance with the conditions that are attached to the permit, which is, that you're living within your hours of operation?
Yes, yes,
that everything is done with a permit.
Yes.
There's no live or amplified sound outdoors.
No.
No cleaning other than hours of operation. Exterior
Correct.
lighting must be downward illuminating. You're in
Correct.
compliance with all of those? Okay.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
They're gonna stay the same as they were before, correct?
They what?
Same hours as before, correct?
Yes.
Yes, the hours are in your I'm going to call your amended special permit when you
Right, I just,
established 2 hours. Yeah. No, they're fine. They're not asking for any change.
I don't know if anyone asked this question yet, but any violations? I know you said no complaints,
we
but
did
I
have,
was
yeah,
curious.
no violations, no complaints.
Okay.
Yes, it was
Thank you.
asked and answered. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I
Dave,
wasn't, so I apologize.
That's okay.
Again,
No, that's
Rob,
okay.
You can ask it again and you can answer it.
Right.
Great.
I do have someone from the public. I don't know if you want to
Okay.
allow them.
Fine, let's let them in.
Okay.
Good evening.
Loading. Okay, they're promoted.
Good evening.
All right, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we also need the video.
I have to put that on. I'm not sure how to do this stuff. Hold on. What do I do? Oh, okay, I see it. Hold on. Sorry. Can you see? You got it?
Now we see you.
Okay. Hi, guys. First off, thank you very much for everything that you guys do and continue to do. My name is Lucia Tadavito. I live at the Regatta. I am on the Regatta board, but I am not representing. I'm not representing the board. Just here for myself and residents of the Regatta. Just to clear, go ahead with the application. Nona Corolla has been very, very good. What a big difference from Molly Spillane's. And we all appreciate it. And we like a nice neighbor. And thank you. No complaints on our end. As if you guys, just if they keep the same hours, and I think the residents that I've spoken to on my side of the building, saying that everything has been quiet and no loud music or noise outside, which is very good. So, they appreciate it. So just wanted to, bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it, yeah. So
Appreciate you commenting. Thank you.
Yeah, so they are not looking to extend their hours? Is that what I?
That's correct. They want the same hours.
Perfect. Okay, great. Then we're all good. We're good over here.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Big difference,
you.
guys.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Like all my applications, right? People love them. It's so nice to hear that. I'm in shock. I'm gonna.
I'm mesmerized here.
Right. No, it's nice.
From the previous hearings, was completely different.
Trust me, I still have the scars from the Molly application.
Almost got
So
it.
it's,
You guys, and so do we. You have to give credit. You have to give credit where credit is due. And that's where the zoning board comes in, and that's where Nona Corolla comes in, because they followed the directions of the zoning board. That's all we could ask for. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah. So the only difference is we'd ask for a 3-year special permit, if possible, as opposed to 18 months or whatever.
Okay. Super. All right. Is there an application to close on this?
I make a motion to close.
Okay, is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay. Meg? Meg?
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
talking? Yes? No, I don't think. Can we hear you?
We didn't hear that, Meg.
Meg is on mute if you're asking for Meg.
I will repeat, I was off mute. I said yes, but everybody was talking. So now, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Greta?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Okay. You vote yes. Thank you. The hearing is closed.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Okay, real quickly, I think two things. I think we can take up a few if you want to. There's a few few resolutions that have been prepared for us. And at the same time, I also think that we should have a short meeting to really deliberate on some other matters that I think are going to take a little longer to deliberate on. Can we do that some point in March? I mean, the next 2 weeks, is that a problem for everybody or anybody? If we just do it for an hour, one night, one evening?
David, what are you suggesting can you be more specific about what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I will endeavor with the utmost of sincerity to be more specific. I think that there are some resolutions that have been drafted that we can now deal with, that I don't think are that complex. And I think the other item that I think is, given the number, we might want to have a special meeting for an hour. Now, I say that for the following: it would be helpful to move things along and deal with some other items and some other resolutions and deliberations, because we seem to have gotten suddenly backed up on them. But at some point, I believe, starting in the middle of the month, is it March 16th, maybe? In anticipation of St. Patty's Day, I think we're going to go to going live again, which means we will be meeting in person. I believe that's not finalized, but I believe that the executive order that provided for us to meet this way will be coming to an end. I haven't personally checked that. I believe Brittany sent out something on that.
It's possible after March 16th, but there's no confirmation until then. So it would be ideal to probably have the meeting prior to that, since they're still
Right.
kind of organizing the courtroom.
Right, because I think it's probably likely that it'll go back to live after March 16th.
Yeah.
It would take, they would have to, I don't think that's going to continue to do it this way. So I think to go, and let me be candid with you, I think to have a meeting where we all attend an extra meeting is very different than just taking an hour and a half one evening for a tight meeting to just clean up on some things. But I want to know if that's all right with everybody or what you think, and then we can try to get a date lined up.
Could I suggest that we go through as far as we're going to go tonight and then see what we have left? It'll affect how long we're going to have to meet the next time, because If we only are doing, the 2 or 3 simple ones and leaving the more complicated ones, it's going to be longer if we get some of the complicated ones. So can we kind of do it and then decide at some point, okay, we've done enough, let's see about meeting? Sorry.
Sure, but I'd like to end at 10:30, but yes, we can do some now, and then I think we can see, but there is also another matter to take up at the next meeting. and
Right,
that-
but let's see how much of this. Brittany, can you let us know which days are available for us to meet between now and the 16th, given that you have to coordinate with the other boards that are meeting? So
I
which
sent that to Dave, so I'll just forward it over to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, my problem is I can't get into my email and stay on Zoom at the same time. But
Brittany, if you open it, or just read the dates, Brittany.
Yep.
I'm sorry, are we trying to find a date right now? I'm not.
Well, just, we should know what dates there's a possibility.
Oh.
I was saying that, and then we'd know what the world
The
of
only nights that
possible
are
dates are.
the only nights that are unavailable at the moment are the 8th, the 9th, and the 16th. Other than that, any day is okay.
8th, 9th, and 15th?
8th, 9th, and 16th are not options.
Okay.
8th, 9th, and 16th are not options.
Correct.
Oh, so there's a lot of options.
So we
Yeah.
have a lot. So the 15th or something could be the 15th. I don't know how that is. How does the 15th that's fairly quick, but that's all right. Does that work for everybody on the 15th?
I'm available on the 15th.
Okay.
I'm looking. Yes, 15th works for me.
Okay. Greta and Meg?
I think it works.
Okay.
I would not be able to say right now. I have to check with my work schedule.
Okay. So why don't we do a tentative and then we'll confirm tomorrow or the next day. We'll confirm on Monday, but I think we just picked the date so we can hold it. And I think we can keep it tight and oh, I'm sorry. You know who we have on? We have counsel. I didn't say hello to you this evening because I don't see you. Are you here?
Here, can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. There you go. Good evening.
Good evening.
You've been this very quiet person that's sitting in the background there. Thank you. Okay. Is that all right? If tentatively, Meg's gonna confirm. Okay. All right. Let's see. We have, I guess, the 911 Fairway Lane is a closed application. And I'm just looking for the
No, there's no resolution. We just have to deliberate on it.
oh, we have, there's no.
Yeah, none of these have resolutions. These are all closed, but no decisions have been made on any of these.
There's a resolution on 1258 East Boston Post Road and 524, 532, 440.
Yeah, we got 2
A
resolutions.
couple of resolutions.
Can I
Right.
have those sent to me? I didn't receive those.
Yeah, we have,
Yeah, we have.
911 Fairway and 700 Baldwin are.
I thought when we discussed Fairway last time, I'm surprised. On the resolution. That's what I remember.
I thought we had. That's why I was looking for it.
I'm surprised. So I didn't go back to look at the tape, but I thought we had discussed it. I know I checked with council and they said they weren't directed to write a resolution, but I thought that we had, I don't think there was any open questions and we did spend some time discussing it.
I had thought that we were getting a resolution on it. Yeah, I mean, I have 2 here. I have the 1258 East Boston Post Road and I have the Waverly. Was there a third one that we received?
No, I think, this was a public, we had the public hearing and we closed it. And we didn't then, I don't know that we did more than that because we had.
Charlie said it was not voted on at the last because the public hearing got pushed because the applicant didn't go to the first meeting. And then it got pushed to a public hearing at the last meeting, but no decision was made when I confirmed with him.
Okay.
Robert, would you be able to forward me the draft resolutions for the 2 that exist? I was not CC'd on those.
I will do that right now.
Thank you.
Well, to discuss it, basically, it was a side setback for a generator.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I thought we had, but I guess But which ones do we have that we have resolutions on? We have it on,
We have it on the, is it Waverly with the storage, outside storage, and we have.
I think that should go, we should definitely deal with that. That's,
Well, since we're doing this, David, why don't we finish this one and then move to the next?
okay, sure.
Yeah.
because I thought we should do ones that we have already done. That's why, but okay.
Well, let's just at least, we started this. Can't we just finish it and then?
Yeah, Brittany is correct that, the applicant didn't show up in January.
Right.
We pushed it to February. That was our last meeting. We closed the hearing. I don't know that there's that much to discuss. I can tell you that one of the things that struck me about this was, could this have been put somewhere else? And Dennis very succinctly said he believes that fire service and safety dictates this being placed where the applicant wants it, because the fire department would be able to get to it. It's in an area next to I guess a garage, which is safer than next to a living area. But I really didn't see any issues with this. We discussed noise complaints, but they said that I think it was 67 decibels, which is about the same as a conversation level. And the neighbor's house is a little bit further away from their setback and angled. So, for my part, and obviously everybody else should chime in, I really don't see much of a reason to not go through with this.
With respect to the noise level, the problem with just saying it's the same as a conversation, the difference is that a generator is continuous. So it would be like having it's a loud conversation, 67 decibels, like having a loud conversation for 2 days right next door to you. So it isn't just like a couple people are talking and then they're quiet. So it does make some amount of noise. But it seems to me that the fire department, as told to us by the building department, was a significant issue, because otherwise it would have made sense. It might have made sense to move it somewhere else further away from a neighbor. But I think given that, and given it is only an emergency generator, it's not like they're going to have it. It's not like an air conditioner thing that's on 24,
Right.
7 or whatever it is. Not that it makes as much noise, but just so I agree. I don't think I have any problem with it.
And by the way,
Do we want to put a condition in on when they could have the testing? There was an automatic testing period usually, that it should be during the, I don't know, afternoon or something.
it's not a
If
bad
they can do
idea.
that, it sounds good. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I'm sure that you can put that on a timer.
I live next door to wonderful generators that all of a sudden, and I know this one was lower. We checked it actually, because I think I commented the last time. I always know when the electricity goes out at night, not because my room lights up, but because I wake up from a noise.
Well, but also I just want to speak to that as a practical matter, because I'm in an area where, exactly the same thing happens when the power goes out. But people bring their portable generators, which don't need a permit whatsoever. And they are much louder than these machines, and they go as long because they're on until the power is resumed. So I actually think that by having a generator like this put in with an attenuation shield around it, it would prevent that homeowner from having to, let's say, have a machine which is outside, which has no attenuation, with a gas motor, which just, first of all, makes more pollution because it's not natural gas, and secondly, just makes more noise, and there's just no controls over it. So as a practical matter, yeah, it gets very loud when the power goes out, but I think that these machines actually are better. They're less noisy.
Oh, I agree. And I think we did look up it, and we did look at the noise levels, as you said, and I think they were fine. All right, yeah, I have no problem with it. I think we should just put down that the testing, one of the conditions should be the testing is, because they have to test every few weeks or every week.
I think it's once every 30 days, but whatever it needs to be tested, it should be done at a time which would not disturb anybody.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be done during the night. It shouldn't be on the weekends.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. That's fine.
so yeah, you just have to figure, you know, when do you think this is good? 10 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, the first Monday of the month? I don't know.
Okay.
We should come up with a standard if we're going to ask council to write it.
Okay. I guess it should be at a time period, not on a weekend, as you said, and not at night. And somewhere between what, 11 and 4 and 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. 10 a.m. or you want to just, is there a particular set of hours that anybody has an issue with or would be better?
Maybe just say not before or not after and not on whatever, and just do it that way.
All right, not on weekends or holidays.
And not after, I'm sorry, not after 5 p.m. and not before 10 a.m. I don't know what's reasonable.
Sounds reasonable.
That sounds fine. I think that.
Chair, board, just putting this out there. This is probably one of the times you don't want to hear from me, but we have majority of holidays land on Mondays. So just put that into considerations, like Mondays and Fridays, maybe not doing that, because then they'll have to pay for the Generac rep or generator rep to come back out and reset that so it misses that Monday or misses that Friday. So, you know, the holidays, you know, if it happens to run on the 4th of July, you know, sorry about that. It's a rotating holiday. But as for the fixed Monday holidays that we have throughout the year, we could avoid that by not having it run on a Monday.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Well, good. You have that?
Has anybody done statistics? Is Wednesday the least holiday day of the week?
Well, you could tell by the number of times
Yeah.
when your garbage gets picked up, how often has your garbage not been picked up because you're on the Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday schedule. So
I think
Wednesday seems to happen very infrequently.
Yeah,
that
Christmas is an issue.
And New Year's Day
And New Year's, yeah.
are the big ones.
Just say no holidays.
And the 4th of July, I guess, also as Dennis said. So that's it. The rest all is all Monday these days.
It runs for such a short period of time, the generator. And then, you know, the generators that are already on calendar to run, that would lead into a violation that we would have to now issue. Hey, my neighbor's generator ran on Tuesday. Meanwhile, it's supposed to run on Thursday. Hey, inspector, go out there and get him. And I would have to go back to the zoning board and say, well, it was appealed at this time. So everything that's, you know, after my kid's birthday is is conforming to the zoning code. The sound, you know, this happens all over Westchester County. It runs for a short period of time. No matter whatever happens, we're going to probably get 1 or 2 complaints. So just
do you know how long they run? Is it 10 minutes, a half hour? Do you know how long?
So it all depends on the unit. So I think we're talking about a 22 kVA, if I'm not mistaken. So it should run for anywhere between 5 to 12 minutes. The board inside will actually specify how long it'll need to run for. So if they feel that the oil is coagulated, they will have it run for 15 minutes, you know, to build up pressure. So let's just say it's from 5 to 20 minutes as a period that it's running periodically, and it's normally once every 2 weeks. It runs. The larger generators will turn on for 5 minutes. This is like a huge whole house generator, not this 22 or 24 kVA. Talking like an 800 horsepower unit turning on. You know, that will turn on depending on the unit and the age, sometimes once a week, and the newer ones will turn on once every 2 months and operate for a long time. So a medical facility, theirs will turn on and run for 45 minutes before turning off. So those would be the ones that we should look out for in the building department if they come up, and then, you know, we'll have a conversation with zoning about. But as for the Generac small ones, you know, just letting it run when it wants to go on, other than the weekends, I think is best time. So maybe, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, avoid those days and hit whichever days that fall in between.
Okay.
I think if we just tell them not before a certain hour, not after, and let them deal with the rest themselves.
Now, the other thing is, how much of a variance are we giving here? I think they said it was 16 and a half feet from the property line, but she was then, I don't know if she was asking for 4 feet. What variance are we giving them? They were originally asking for 3.5.
I don't have that with me.
I don't have it either.
Chair and board, as you're looking for that, right? We're going to see more generators coming to your board soon. There's 2 more that I'm aware of that don't meet the setbacks, and there's a reason why they'll have to, put them where they're putting them. I don't like to pull things away from you, but if a determination could be made by the building inspector and then send a letter to the board, and you can review it instead of having this come in front of you, and the long period of time for medical use for the generator, it'll solve a lot of issues and clear up some time on your schedule as well. So something to put in consideration.
Well,
So
I
if a
think-
generator has to be placed 18 inches away from a house, and it's only 2.5 feet away, so say 3 feet away from a home and 3 feet wide, it's a small generator, and we can confine it to that, label it on their survey, and bring it to your attention, and it can be looked at. I mean, as long as it's not in a tight spot where there's only 6 feet of distance between the other house, maybe make some exceptions, but just to think about it.
But isn't that something that really is legislative? That's really, isn't that up to the trustees?
It may be, but I think respectfully, I'd much rather talk to you as the chair and the board first and get your thoughts, and then I can propose something to the village administrator and go in that direction. But I'm sitting here with you. Therefore, having this conversation with the board is my first priority.
We can recommend it, or we can do nothing about it and let them, I mean, I think that's really. Does the board have any feelings on this thing?
Well, it's like, David, if you remember several years ago, we used to get all of these applications for fence variances because everybody wanted a 5-foot fence and the code said 4-foot
Yeah.
fence. And we got tons of requests for variances. And we did discuss with the board, we did ask the board to consider increasing it so they wouldn't come, and they did. And now we don't get all those variances. And so I think Dennis's request that we think about this is similar, although we haven't had as many of these as we did of the fence variances, but maybe it's something, but it would be something if we do get a lot to prevent us getting.
Yeah, if we get a
And
lot,
it might be something, that's my only thought. We haven't had a lot now so far.
we haven't had a lot.
The revision for the fence was to change what was permitted in terms of the height, right? Is that correct? They changed the code to allow it. It wasn't that it would go by approval letter rather than a regular variance application. It seems that it would be to consider, should they change the setbacks or what the requirements are for a generator? If it's going to, it was a good point what you made, Robin, about the fence. It seems like it's up to the legislators to decide if the requirements around putting the generator in could change.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we did that with the fences. We said to the board, look, we have so many, maybe you can think about this. And so if we get a lot of them here, I think we might do that too, but I don't think we can do something yet because we haven't had enough. And even though, Dennis, you're saying we're coming, I think before we can say we've gotten a lot and it's an issue, we have to have them. You're asking us to do it in advance, and I find it difficult to say in advance.
I concur. I think if we get them, we'll deal with it. And then I think we probably will recommend it and tell you then, Dennis, let's see where it goes. If we're gonna get them, seems to be just a lot of paperwork and a lot of administrative work that probably could be handled best by the building department, but as I go with Robin on that, let's see what happens.
Right, I mean, it's a thoughtful, you know, it's a thoughtful offer, so we'll see.
All right, the next one I'd like to do, it's not as much, but we never decided, we never issued the resolution on Waverly, I'm sorry, 306, the new Waverly Avenue Associates. We have the resolution, a proposed resolution on that.
So, I'm
And
sorry, so we have,
Like, go to that,
David,
yeah,
David, we just did Fairway, we just did Fairway.
right,
We're asking the village, the attorney to prepare a resolution.
correct. You
Okay,
want-
now you're saying we should go to which,
Well, because we have it completed, we have.
Just before we move on, I want to make sure I'm clear on what the restrictions are going to be. And is it going to be no weekends or Mondays? And not after 5 or before 10?
It's going to be between the hours of, what do we say,
10 and 5.
10 and 5, and not on weekends, except not on weekends,
Not on Mondays.
not on weekends or holidays. I mean, I don't.
Well, no, the problem is the holidays rotate according to Dennis, so the suggestion was not on weekends or Mondays.
Fine. Yeah, but what if you have, well, okay.
And I don't think we can be particular about it. So, I mean, big deal, it's a holiday, you have some noise for 10, 15 minutes, it's not
Yeah,
a,
I mean, you probably covered 85%. There's no predicting when a holidays, some holidays are gonna land.
Okay. All right,
Okay, thank you.
you want to do two quick, all right, what, 200 Baldwin, we do not have anything, we have not deliberated on that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, this is the second floor. I don't have my file right in front of me. This is existing. I don't think there was an issue. Does anyone remember this one better than I do? Because I don't at this moment. I remember it wasn't.
they were, I have the plan, but I'm trying to look at what they were doing. Oh, yeah, they were
doing the.
They're adding a second floor
Adding a
within
second-
the footprint of the home, and not the bump out for the kitchen in the back that somehow got put on, but the variance is for the setback in the backyard, and that backyard just backs up to 95.
Right, oh, that's correct. Yes, yes, yes.
It doesn't impact anybody.
It was absolutely, you're absolutely right.
And these people have nowhere else to go in terms of the house because they don't want to go outside the footprint, and they've got 2 little kids.
Right.
And I've seen that street. It really doesn't change the character of the street, and it doesn't even change the roof line that much because there was another roof line in the other direction, which was about the same ridge height, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. I have no problem with it. I remember looking at the visual on it, where it was located. And I think that made it was right by 95 there.
Yeah, it backs up to 95.
Yeah, I recall.
And I think they discussed enlarging the front entry platform, because that's part of their project, but I don't think that required a variance and had anything to do with the.
right, that's, I'm looking at the plan right now, and it didn't.
So I think they were just telling us everything that they're going to do, but that really didn't
Right.
go into it.
Correct.
Okay. I have no problem.
Right, they have some non-conforming conditions, but those non-conforming conditions, like their side yard, is not being changed.
Right.
No, it's right in the middle of the house.
Yes. All right. Anyone want this drafted up then?
Sure. Yeah, let's get this drafted.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bob, you want to draft that for the next meeting?
Yep, we'll prepare for the next meeting.
Fine, okay. Next is the Waverly Avenue. Okay, I looked at the resolution. Substantively, I don't have an issue. I don't, there's some language issues in it. I guess this is the one where we said it's a use variance, correct? This is the, that's, right. So if you look at the fourth whereas, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth whereas, requires that any storage proposed on the premises must be within an enclosed building, otherwise such storage. I would just say, I think that's an odd way to say it. I said, requires that storage is prohibited unless it is within an enclosed building.
But is that verbatim to the code though? Or
No. The way the code reads it, it's very different. The code says storage is a permitted use, and then it has requirements for permitted uses. All permitted uses must be conducted within an enclosed structure.
What's the section on that? Let me just take a quick look.
34232 A2?
Yeah, let's see.
So why don't we just use that? Why don't we just quote?
Yeah, hold on. That's, yeah, and there's another, but I'm sorry, what was that again? 342?
342-32.
342-32?
Yeah, A2.
Right.
At least that's what it
I
says.
don't think we need the, since we have in this, whereas it permits storage, all of the above uses shall be carried on in enclosed buildings. We don't need the follow-up whereas, because it's clearly said it in the first two. So I think we can delete this
Fine.
paragraph.
Yeah, because the other one, that's convoluted with that one. That was the one thing, and then I had,
I'll just get rid of that fourth
Yeah.
whereas.
I think, and then on the page 3, again, on the top of page, I guess on top of page 3, whereas the outdoor storage of mobile generators is not permitted anywhere on the premises, but for,
That should come out because it's not, outdoor storage is not permitted, period.
not permitted, right, exactly. Whereas the outdoor storage is not permitted, period, is not a permitted use.
Right.
That's what I would say. It's
Well,
not,
before we get there, David,
yes,
I had a couple of things on page 2.
go ahead, shoot.
Yeah, well, hold on, but let's not walk away from that. That should just be, you just get rid of mobile generators, because by the way, they also want to store air conditioning equipment
It's anything.
and other things. So
Outdoor storage is not permitted,
is not permitted anyway.
use,
Okay,
is not a permitted use, fine.
right, okay.
Okay, now going back to the page before, sort of one of the middle whereas clauses says, whereas the proposed outdoor storage is substantial. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do.
That's irrelevant to what we're saying here. I think it should, and also principal is spelt wrong. So for what we're doing here, so I think it should just say, whereas the proposed outdoor storage is the principal use being sought on the premises.
Okay, it's the principal use. Okay, fine, but it is.
And then the next one,
Be in there, okay.
and then the next one should say, whereas zoning code 340, I mean, it repeats what's in the first page, so I kind of didn't go through this, but there's a lot of repetition. Whereas zoning code requires that all principal uses, because it is a principal use, including storage, be carried on in enclosed buildings, except for off-street parking, loading, motor vehicle, which may be outdoors. And then the next one is, whereas the proposed outdoor storage is that of mobile generators and related equipment, and the word therefore should come out, and is not. It's not a therefore, it's just is not. We don't need the therefore there.
Right.
And that was it on that page. So then go ahead.
Wait, wait on that page on the very top. This is just a stupid thing. The, I guess the 5th line down, collectively, the application, it needs a closed parentheses.
Okay.
Got it.
Then on the top of page 3, whereas the outdoor storage of mobile, we covered that already, right?
Right.
Right, we dealt with that. Then if you go down,
Wait, before you get there, David,
Yep.
I think the issue here is, to me, as I was looking at it, and this goes to this line here, the line that isn't there, but it goes to the issue of it's not simply a dimensional requirement. The issue here is, what is the proposed use? Is the proposed use storage that happens to be outdoors, or is the proposed use outdoor storage. And to me, the proposed use is outdoor storage. They're not proposing to erect a building. The use itself is outdoor storage. And I think that's the key here. It isn't simply
Was the primary
storage,
use- Well, you said the primary use is outside storage.
right? Not just
I think we're
storage.
repeating a lot of
That's-
stuff. That's all, but you're right. See, because for the interpretation aspect and because in the cases, they say they've all held, it's really up to us, but it's gotta be a reason I guess a reasoned result, or opinion. So what would you change that to, Robin? Or
I would just, at first I'd add a sentence that it's, the requested use is for outdoor storage, not simply storage, right? That's the important thing. They're trying to say the use is storage and this is just a physical requirement. And I don't think that's what it is. I think here they're asking for outdoor storage. That is the use.
Yes, but haven't we said that? But that's fine. We're saying, I mean, we said the outdoor storage. See,
Right, but I think we need to say it's outdoor storage, not simply storage, because then we're going on to say it's not from a dimensional requirement, or it has to be from a physical requirement. But it's, see, to me, they're asking for outdoor storage. And so the next clause I would have changed to, whereas the requested relief is not from a dimensional requirement, nor is it from a simple physical requirement for a particular use, but is a request for a fundamentally different use of land.
Well, or for a prohibited use of land.
But it isn't that it's prohibited, it's that it's fundamentally different, because that's the point. If it's I think the key is here. Otherwise, I mean, we have to recognize.
How about this?
Well, now, Robin, in the next whereas,
Yeah.
it does say, I mean, I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
it fundamentally changes the use of the premises.
I think we should say it essentially changes. That isn't that the language that's used as opposed to fundamentally,
That's fine.
essentially?
So Robin, does that third whereas clause help?
If you want to do the code language, it should be, whereas the proposed use is to carry on. See, it shall be carried on in an enclosed building.
You see what, David, to the extent that you're saying that because remember, the village law says physical or dimensional. So if this is just a physical requirement, then they get an area variance. I don't think it's just a physical requirement. I think it's a really different use of the property.
Thing,
That's what I'm trying to say. It's essentially, it's a different use of the property.
It is the it is the essential use here. It isn't like, by the way, I want to have this. It's
Right.
That's it. And
And
that's
that's what I think the difference is here.
I agree with you. I can live with anything.
So I
And
was trying to get that conveyed, and if there's other words, language that someone has, that's okay. I'm not tied to my language.
I mean,
but-
I agree with your point, Robin. I think it should be made explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, on the now therefore it resolved.
Wait, before we get there,
Okay. I'm
I
sorry.
want to say something else, which is that the request, so we said this is a dimensional requirement. I want to say it isn't a physical requirement, but a request for a different use. So then I would also want to say, because they talk about, it's not similar to a request for a reduction in parking spaces, because parking restrictions, right? Parking restrictions are not a dimensional requirement, right? The codes, but they're the same, but the courts have said it's the same. And so I want to say, well, it's not the same as a reduction in parking spaces, because parking spaces are amenable to expression as a numeric formula or number, and this is not, request is not. So I think it's different from parking spaces.
You want to really go
Because
into
parking space is not a dimensional requirement either. So I don't want to just say it's not a dimensional requirement. That doesn't seem to me enough, given that the courts have said that you treat parking spaces, which is not a dimensional requirement, the same way.
I have a different I'm sorry.
Wait,
Just
wait,
one- I have a
Robert.
different- I have a different interpretation of parking spaces, so I would be opposed to putting anything like that in this. So.
Should we say something to the effect, Robin, that it's not really from a dimensional requirement, a physical requirement, or a numerical requirement?
Fine,
That's fine. You could say that. That would do.
fine. Down that one level. Okay. Anything else before the now therefore? Okay. There's the use of the word here. It comes up again later about it being improper. request for an hearing the board determined that the appellant's request for an area variance. See, they use
Where
it-
is that, David?
it's on the now therefore be it resolved.
Yeah.
And
I don't see the, oh, yeah, improper.
then,
Yeah.
and then you go to the next page, on the top, it says that the application is improperly before this board. I don't think it's improperly before it. It's not improper. It was made. It's an application. It was, the relief is, it can't be granted. So I didn't like the use of the words improper there, but I would say request for a being hearing the board determines that the applicant's request for an area variance, I would say instead of is improper, must be denied because the proposed outdoor use is prohibited and therefore is not an area variance, requires a use variance. Just say it.
Rather than say must be denied, about cannot be considered, because you're not reaching a determination on it.
Right.
Right, yeah. And plus, the word improper, particularly when you read the last paragraph of the resolution, it's because I don't know if it's not.
Yeah, it's not improper.
Not an improper thing. It's.
No, I understand the point. Yeah, that point's well taken.
Okay.
Can you also change the spelling of principal in the second under the
Yes.
be further resolved to be correct for the appropriate principal?
Yes.
And then on the be it further resolved on the top of the page 4, because the area variance application. See, I said because is improperly before the board, need not complete the sequel review.
What I just said, it cannot be considered by the board.
Right.
It can be considered, and we considered it, and we applied that it's, we can't, we made the determination.
And I would take out the 7th because the 7th looks like a determination as to like one of the variance findings. We've said it's not an area variance. The fact that it would change the character of the neighborhood is not an issue here.
Where's that?
That's not relevant to our decision. We're saying it's use, not that it's going to change the character of the neighborhood.
Well, how about this? But the proposed outdoor storage
Is not a permitted use. I think we said that. That's it.
our interpretation is a fundamentally different use than that permitted.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
Fine.
exactly what that's exactly what my note said, just it's a fundamentally different use.
Yeah, that's why I said that. No.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier too. I mean, it's what I said earlier. that
Correct.
it's Fundamentally.
No, I
different
think
use.
that's right. This is becoming very defensive in its way. And then on the next one, so because the area variance application is denied, do you need that sequel review?
How about saying something to the effect that because the board is not considering the area variance application on its merits for the foregoing reasons, secret does not apply.
All right. And then the last one is determination resolution.
But wait a second, we did consider it and.
No, you didn't. You didn't deny the area variance. You just said you have not requested the appropriate relief.
But we didn't consider that whether or not it could get an area variance.
You didn't do a balancing test. You're saying you requested the wrong relief. What you really need is a use variance.
Right. In essence, that's what was, because the area variance application is denied. How about is denied? If you're going to deny something because it's legislatively improper or it can't be done, then that excludes it from CEQA as well, right? You don't have to go through a process when the result's going to be, we can't give it to you. So if you want that CEQA language in there, then put in something that says because the area resolved.
I think Rob said what he would say.
Okay, all right, then I'm happy with whatever.
He said that we can't consider it because they asked for the wrong relief.
Consider it. No, I think is what he said, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand. I understand the board's action to be that you're saying they have requested the wrong relief. They've requested an area variance where it really should be a use variance.
Right.
Well, so it's really because the board has determined that it cannot grant an area. This is because the application is not properly the subject of an area variance. It doesn't have to. What is it?
Yes.
It doesn't have to complete a SQL review. It's really because we've determined that it's the,
Right, because essentially no determination is being made on the requested action.
correct. And then on the last one, be it further, this determination and resolution is made. I would take out the word made and is without prejudice to the applicant. And it's not reapplying, applying for a use variance.
Correct.
It's not reapplying, applying.
I agree.
Not to this board, not,
Right.
yeah, for a use variance. Yeah,
We'll do a red line and circulate that.
you want to vote on that now?
Yeah,
Members? I mean, I know we can vote. It's,
I'm happy to vote on it.
somebody want to move for the adoption of this thing, subject to the, as we reviewed it in that substance? And we'll circulate it before it's filed.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I can second it.
All right, fine. Okay, Meg,
Yes.
okay, Greta,
Yes.
okay, Brian,
Yes.
okay, Robin,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Okay. Okay. We have another one prepared. Do you want to call it at this point at 11 o'clock, or do you, and we'll take the rest up or not?
Can I just make a comment? I don't know if you'll consider this, but I do know that 1258 East Boston is looking to try to make the 23rd planning board meeting pending the approval for this. So if you do have a draft, I don't know if it's kind of waiting on that.
Well, we have a resolution.
Yeah, you want to do it?
I don't think it should take very long.
Well, I'm confused on something on this, and I love, this is the problem. I take stuff to the office and I forget. Is this the vacant parcel, or isn't this a parcel that has improvements on it?
It's vacant,
Totally vacant.
totally vacant.
All right, that's me.
That's correct. That's our view as well.
Robin, I thought it was, you know what I mean? I thought, it's not the one across, it doesn't include that parcel that has the small building
No,
with the used cars? Huh?
no. No, it's across the street from that.
No, you have on the, hang on the east side of the street is the main Toyota dealership, right?
Yes,
On the west side, there's a small building.
correct.
This does not include that small building, right?
No, there's now another street.
Right. Before Sunny's, whatever, I forgot. the name.
Right, Sunny something, and it's just an empty parcel. There's a little bit of concrete on it. And there's a couple of curb cuts that are there, and the one on Sunny side has just two pylons with a chain that they can,
Gotcha.
that's it. There's nothing else on that lot.
Only comment I had was the car dealership shall include all services. And on the condition 3, I'm just looking at the car dealership shall include all services transactional. Where it says shall include. And utilize is what I was going to suggest in there.
Where are you, David?
Condition 3.
Okay, I have some comments before that, so when you finish your condition.
Go with yours, go with yours, go with yours.
Okay, so top of page 2, it says without support from the adjacent dealerships, but the dealerships are not adjacent, they're nearby. So it should say nearby dealerships.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a secret, the whereas after the secret one is rather than saying as conditioned, because I actually don't like the use of that language. I think it should say, whereas the board finds that the proposed car dealership, the word "and" should come out, meets the special use permit criteria in the zoning code, provided that it operates at all times as a completely separate dealership and further complies with the conditions established by this resolution.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'd just like to raise a,
very
I
clear.
didn't think that we told them that it has to operate as a completely different dealership. I disagree with the statement that they said that as representative, it's separate and apart. I thought they definitely were clear to us that the cars might be sold on either side, or that some of the sales transactions, but that they were willing to set this lot up to comply in case it ever broke away. It would have all the components to be an independent car dealership. But I disagree that they said that they were not going to be operating in conjunction with the other lots. We wanted to make sure everything was existing there. As Brian had said, it was to control that situation, that they wouldn't create something that didn't have all the components there.
Right, so
Everybody else
better,
heard that differently, but
so
that's
maybe a better way to say it is to say that this lot must have all, complete ability to operate independently. It has the ability to operate independently, but we're not then enforcing whether or not they're in fact working in conjunction with the others.
I thought that what they said was, when they started, they said they were going to be part of, and then when we indicated, well, but that's a problem, they said, then if we have to, we will operate it separately. I thought that's what they said.
But I think you said.
Yeah.
that's not what I took away, that they had said they will, make sure there's enough customer parking, that there is an office, that all the transactions could be there, all of that, that it could operate to go from start to finish with the car sales there. But I don't remember exacting from them that they could not do any business in conjunction with the other.
Right, I think what happened was, it's one ownership. It's unrealistic, and it's not feasible that they're going to operate independently, or no, I mean separately, but they are set up to be able to work independently. As their own lot, meeting all of the requirements, much the same as the other used car lot across the street. It's exactly the same, actually, where they're not required to operate independently, but they are meeting all the standards that they could, if they needed to.
Yeah, and this
they've got the building, and they've got the parking, and they're able to do all the transactions on their own, and they have to abide by a delivery schedule and timing and lighting, and because otherwise you're just going to create a parking lot.
And this board did give us a special permit to that lot across the street, and didn't put this requirement in that it couldn't do business, couldn't be in some way integrated with the one across the other way.
Right, it always has to be able to operate independently.
So should condition one read, the car dealership is capable of operating independently and separate from any other motor vehicle sales facility?
Yes, and where it listed that it needed all the sales transactions, I think it doesn't say that it needs customer parking, but that's not in here. We talked a lot about having sufficient customer parking. I think we should list out some of those things that it needs to maintain in order to be completely independent.
Okay, my input for what it's worth is, at least the way it's written now is shall include all services. I think that also lets them do it separately. My problem is that if you're going to have entities that are all together as one and have separate special permits, it's very strange. If you say they're capable of, how are you going to ever enforce that? Because that's such a subjective thing. But if you, as a midpoint, maybe you leave it the way it is, that they will include the services. They can then link up, I suppose, but at least they include them.
Well, I think, in terms of enforcement, when you use the word capable, it means that they have to have a building on the property, and the building always has to be in workable order and usable order, and they've got to meet all of the requirements of a standalone facility, and that's why I think capable is actually a decent word there. Because that means they have to continue the standards. They can't just shutter the building. They have to be able to go in there and do a transaction.
I think capable is less than saying it shall include. Shall include, the way it's drafted, isn't as strong as I would like, but it seems like, okay, it shall include it. Capable means, well, we could include it.
Okay.
That's the way.
Okay.
I don't know,
We can have capable in number 1, but then shall include it can remain in number 3.
Sure.
I don't think those thoughts are inconsistent.
Yeah, all right. I mean, if you have the car dealership shall include also. Yeah, I don't, that's probably a good midpoint, I think.
And by the way, number 2, I don't really remember exactly, but this is only for used cars?
No,
This is part of the code where it says if you are going to sell used cars, you can only sell the used ones that were in on that lot. That's our.
It doesn't preclude new. It says if
Yeah.
you sell the used, as Meg said.
Okay.
The other
One thing
thing,
that's missing here that we did discuss was the lighting plan. I would like to include that they must use the lighting plan that they showed us that was going to be matching what's used across the street. It was the downward lighting. I think
All right,
it's.
so I think what we had discussed to cover ourselves with that, because you're right about that. And we also wanted to make sure that they had the parking in there, was in number 4, when they're talking about it should be constructed consistent with the final site plans, as amended, that, those site plans are in line with, with the things that we had approved during the,
Yeah, so we shouldn't
During
leave it up
the-
to the planning board because we considered this in terms of the impact on neighbors and impact on the street and such. So that's why, you were very insistent on having enough customer spaces so that you're not getting a lot of extra lines on the street. And the lighting is also something that we as a board could request, because it is about having its impact on houses nearby or anywhere in the area. If they're angled at the wrong way, even though it says in the code that you can't shine it on a property, it can still catch your eye as you're driving down the street. It's much better the way they set up the lighting in the new renovated space across the street. So that's what I would like to see. And that's what
Right, so how do we get that in there?
I think what you do, you put in there that indicate, you could say, the car dealership is subject to site plan approval. It's really, well, that's a condition, okay.
Well, they presented a plan to us. We could say the lighting plan, which I was fairly confident it did match the one across the street. If we could say it's the lighting plan that they presented to us in the application.
We can just refer to that plan with specificity if it has a
Yeah.
date. Yeah.
Or you can say planning, and then in connection with site plan review, planning board shall require lighting that is downward. I mean, it's really a planning board thing, we're now messing with site plan. That's my own, but I understand it also relates, as you said, Meg, to our reasons for approval.
Mhm. So I don't.
Right,
want
and it should
planning board.
also conform with the final parking plan that we said was.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but maybe you feel differently. I feel like the planning board might find a different design as long as it has a sufficient number of customer spaces. Like, I don't think we're dictating where the spaces go as long as they have sufficient.
And say that it's subject to a site plan review in accordance with, as Bob said, with the plan itself that we had. And then say, except that the planning board may reconfigure the site,
That's what the intent of number 4 is to say, that it should be constructed consistent with the final site plans, as really may be amended by the planning board during the site plan review process.
But it doesn't say anywhere how many customers spaces are that we discussed. And we did discuss, we got a commitment from the applicant that they would provide those customer spaces.
Yeah, I think you have to say, as amended, subject, however, to they shall not reduce the number of customer spaces, if that's what you want. And the lighting shall be, yeah, if you're gonna say shall be amended and you're gonna prepare a specific plan, you pretty much said it's up to the planning board entirely, which is fine if you want that. If there is something, other things, you should say amended except that, and then indicate what you don't want amended. You don't want to have, or indicate that it's very important to have lighting that is downward and the least intrusive to the neighbors.
Or consistent with the plan that they proposed to the ZBA. And we could say the same thing with the parking. They can change that.
Yeah, I hate to do this to the planning board, but yeah, I think you're right. Because they really relate to two different things. They relate to the issuance of the special permit, because they were environmental factors that we consider for that. And yet they're also ultimately determined better by the planning board. But yeah, I think you should put them, I think they should be in there. I agree with you guys. I mean, I do. So it's subject to site plan, and the site plan, subject to site plan approval by the planning board, right? The Village of Marnock. And the terms of the site plan. I don't know how you write this. So it's subject to site plan review, which shall be no less, which shall include the same number of which shall not contain less than the number of parking spaces, if that's what you want, right? And the site plan they gave us, and which shall also
utilize the lighting plan that the applicant.
Lighting plan or one less intrusive, right? They may have a better one.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you want to say it's got to be less. You can't adjust those, because those are factors we considered important.
Or you could say it at least consistent with the lighting plan.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. All right. And then additional conditions should be additional. I have no idea. How is planning on I guess they do a good job on the site plan. I have no idea. Good. You want to see this the next time we meet, or you want to go forward now?
I think we could go forward. It's fine with me if.
Yeah, we can. I could go forward.
Just with like with the other one, I'll provide a red line.
Oh, wait, I have another, on number 5 in the conditions. It says the special permit renewal shall terminate upon any change in the use of the premises. I think we should be clear, including any reduction in the services available or provided, however we're doing the rest, because it's not just a change of use, but if they decide to stop serving having all the uses available, that should also be the same basis for termination, since we're doing this in reliance on the fact that they can operate separately. So something there about the fact that if they can no longer operate separately, even if it's not a change in use, that would be a basis for termination. Otherwise, this whole thing is moot and they could tomorrow just change it all. So.
I'm good. Robin, you want to move it?
Sure, I move we to adopt this resolution as we discussed it, amended it, etc.
Second on that?
I second.
Meg?
Yes.
Adam?
Yep.
Barb?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Can you get that, Bob? Can you get that fairly soon to us so we have it before they go to planning?
Yes. Yep. We can flip that quickly.
Good. Thank you. All right. We are at the witching hour of 11:20.
The others are long. We should.
I'm sorry?
Early morning tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to cut out.
What I was saying was Palmer is long, could be a long discussion. So I think we should
Yeah.
wait. Charlie said.
Hey, guys, I'm gonna have to go, so thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night.
Night.
So
And we're gonna decide whether or not the 15th is gonna be the meeting.
well, I mean, if we're waiting to hear from Meg, if she can't do it, then we're gonna have to come up with another date, so.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear from her.
But then we have to do another date. Do you want to come up with a second alternative date now? So that if Meg can't make the first, she could make the second. Otherwise, it gets very complicated with somebody sending out an email, which dates. I think that maybe we should have a second date. And if Meg can't make the first, then we can do, and everybody can make the second, if we can. agree on
Mondays are always very safe as far as any other board, so the 14th is also an option. There's never board meetings, for me at least, on the 14th.
Well, don't the trustees meet on Monday?
Yeah, but we don't, as long as we're on Zoom, we're not using space, so.
Okay.
Not the 16th is a backup day. Monday's a tough day. I'm not sure. I'm out of town.
No, we can't use the 16th.
16th is Harbor
There's a
Coastal unless it's canceled, then
There's a
it may,
conflict.
yeah,
So it'd have to be the week before.
yeah.
The week before is like next, no, so then, all right, then do it
That's it.
I guess we can do the 14th as a backup.
All right, so I'll follow up with an email for the 14th or the 15th and we'll get a consensus.
But we want the 15th unless Meg.
Unless
can.
Meg, yeah,
We want the 15th. We're waiting for Meg to tell us.
okay.
That's all. The 14th is,
Not so great.
see, as a grandfather, I have been appointed the person in charge of 3 lovely children for 2 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I
So
always
Monday's recovery.
have respect for my son and daughter-in-law until they said, would you take care of them? I said, me? They said, they love you. Go play with them. So you go to an ATM machine and you become great. What would you like? And I'm very good at that because my son gets mad at me. I always tell them, the answer is yes. You have to have the question. And they go, really? And I go, the most fun in the world for $20 or $40 is found from that, I will tell you. Go into a store and it's like, really? We can get that? Yes, you've been very good, I think. All right. Okay, it's been a pleasure. A little later. I'm really trying to work on this. I'm sorry. This one. Flagler's
I
gonna.
think the first application is, that's a really complicated issue. A lot of people have an interest, and if not for that, we would have cleared our agenda.
Yes, I agree with you.
I don't think our goal should be to clear our agenda. Our goal should be to get these to discuss as fully as we need to and move from there. So
I agree with you.
I agree with you. I'm just
actually,
I'm just saying we didn't finish the agenda because we did exactly that.
right, and that happens.
And you
And
know,
that's
what I
fine.
said earlier? I remember another one from Flagler, several, and they're always like this. And then when they found that, they sent the resolution, and I saw my signature on it. I said, "Oh, that was that one." Yep. They get very they're very active and they're very concerned, and they've invested a lot in their properties. Okay, is anyone on the board when we had one with the empty lot? Oh my God, please. It's always been a park. I said, yeah, well, this is now I want to develop it. I said, no, it's always been a park. Okay. Such is life, but this will be interesting, and that's a good one. And on that note, we can adjourn the meeting. All in favor can leave.
Yep.
Those who are.
Aye, in favor, yes. Good night,
In
everyone.
favor.
Have a good
Thank you.
couple of weeks.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
night, all.
Weekend, okay, have a good weekend and a good week. Okay.
Good night.
And if anyone wants to join me on babysitting, I'm available this Thursday, Friday. Okay, take care. Bye bye now.